You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello and welcome to Force 13's live coverage of Hurricane Nicole this Wednesday night. Currently over Grand Bahama, and the National Hurricane Center called not long ago, I think it was at 6 p.m, that it had become a hurricane, Category 1, with winds sustained of 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars. Although they'll have just produced another update right now. Let me just find out what their latest is. I imagine they haven't changed it. Yep, at 7 p.m. it's currently at 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars. They've just confirmed that with their latest update, and no changes to the warnings compared to the last update, but there's a lot of warnings that we'll go through in a minute. Just want to read out a little information. Just late information here. Hurricane force winds extend outwards 10 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend up to 485 miles from the center, especially to the north of the center. A mesonet observation site on Freeport, Grand Bahama Island, recently reported a wind gust of 61. And we're expecting a storm surge of up to 5 feet. Just to go through those warnings then. Right now we have a hurricane warning for the Abacos, Berry Islands and Grand Bahama Island in the Bahamas, and for Boca Raton to the Flagler-Volusia County line, Florida. A tropical storm warning for Bimini and for Hallandale Beach, Florida to Boca Raton, and for Flagler-Volusia County line to South Santee River, South Carolina. For north of Bonita Beach to Indian Pass, and for Lake Okeechobee. A storm surge warning for North Palm Beach, Florida to the Altamaha Sound, Georgia, the mouth of the St. Johns River to Georgetown, and for the Anclote River to the Ochlockonee River, Florida. Hurricane watch for Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton and Lake Okeechobee. A storm surge watch for the Ochlockonee River to Indian Pass, south of North Palm Beach to Hallandale Beach, and Altamaha Sound, Georgia to the South Santee River, South Carolina. Those are the latest warnings that are currently in effect. There are no zones right now under a tropical storm watch, which is what they were yesterday's stream, but there are none of those. It's just warnings and the hurricane watch still in effect for some of those areas. So looking at this satellite imagery, you can see how Nicole is developing. Let me introduce myself and our guests tonight. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and tonight I am in front of a live radar screen. Not sure how well you can see that there, but you can quite distinctly see the eye on it. But we have our own viewpoints where we can show you our screen output properly, and this is one of the viewpoints here showing what the storm's looking like as it continues to progress west-northwestwards. I am joined right now by some of our members. We have David, Aidan, Amethyst, Patrick and Ethan. And tonight we're also taking your calls live on the air through our Discord stage. There's a link to it underneath our description. The first link you'll see gets you through to our tropical stage, and you'll be able to either chill in the audience or you can call in if you like. We'll also be taking chat comments throughout the evening as well. As said, we're here for 4 hours charting this storm as it gets closer and closer to making landfall. Let's first talk to Ethan then. And you were quite notable for stoically suggesting that it would never become a hurricane.
Yeah, I was a bit hit or miss on it, really, to be honest, because models were suggesting that the hurricane would top out around this intensity now. They still are even. Although I guess I really shouldn't be surprised, because it's only 5 knots or 5 miles per hour that really only had to ramp up that. And it is going over the Gulf Stream, so I guess I really shouldn't be that surprised. Either way, a high-end tropical storm and a low-end Category 1 hurricane, really not a huge difference, really. This is just basically all that it is just reclassifying it as a hurricane, and that's really honestly all it is at this point.
It's only 5 minutes past 7. We don't have the new cone. Well, it's not going to be a new cone, but just a position update on the old cone. But that should be out any time just to see how far it's traveled. I think it might. It's probably just in line with the cone. But anyway, the forecast here, if we look at the National Hurricane Center, and it's getting pretty close now to decision point as to where exactly it will make landfall. And if we were to look right in towards that center line, it looks like Port St. Lucie, or just north of there towards Vero Beach, is going to end up being in the landfall location. Certainly within the eye, I think, at this point, all of that.
Specifically talking for a landfall location there, Nathan, we're looking at Fort Pierce right now for a landfall location. That's what the NHC is forecasting right now. Although it is worth noting that they forecast 2 landfalls, actually. They forecast one, of course, near Fort Pierce. And they forecast one on the western coast, north of Homosassa Springs, I think is how you pronounce it. And, of course, they forecast that at a tropical storm intensity, not a hurricane whenever it gets over there. It's going to weaken as it exits Florida on the west hand coast, and then will curve very quickly off towards the north and will become absorbed with a massive cold front.
You're looking at the track directly, though, which basically draws the line as the crow flies from the one point to the next point, but actually it's more of a curve. And I would suggest that second landfall would be much closer to, well, that northerly part to the southeast of Tallahassee.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a landfall location up there. It could really, honestly be anywhere along that coast, because you have to remember the forecast cone is where the center of the storm could track, not the impacts. So the storm, honestly, on the west coast of Florida could track as far west as, over towards where Michael made landfall, towards over towards Panama City. It could get close to there. It's not going to do that probably, or it could stay inland for its whole duration. That is entirely possible. It's a track over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico is not entirely uncertain. Of course, it's more likely than not, but it is still not out of the question that the center could remain over land for the entire duration of its duration. It is also worth noting that with this upgrade to Nicole becoming a hurricane, we're not actually seeing any hurricane force winds over land yet. As Recon has gone in and found the hurricane force winds are likely just south and just north of Grand Bahama Island, not over the island directly. So that's some really good news that really only Grand Bahama Island right now is reporting only moderate to tropical storm force winds right now, and that looks to be the case as Nicole passed west. They might get some hurricane force winds on the it's the same winds, that is, on the coastal areas, but I really don't think that any of the major areas are going to get sustained hurricane force winds for a decent amount of time. Really going to be tropical storm force more than anything.
Here's a viewpoint that we were looking at last night, Cocoa Beach, and that will be on the northern side of the storm's landfall zone. And they may well get some of those strong winds, and it's already getting pretty heavy there at the moment. With tropical storm force winds feasibly reaching all parts of the coast of Florida and even up into Georgia and South Carolina, even with that enormous wind field. But there's the current view from Cocoa Beach. Let's see if we can talk to Patrick right now. I'm sure you're watching this closely for any severe weather action that might ensue in this. I imagine it's been pretty quiet so far.
Yes, it has indeed. I've actually been waiting for our first mesocyclone to develop off of these showers here, and honestly, I'm not seeing a lot, which is the good thing, although over the next couple hours, I do expect that the tornado threat will gradually increase with further westward movement of the system overall, as you're going to have those more outer rain bands moving onto the coast. And I've been taking a look at some soundings earlier this morning on the H-R model, and they are actually looking pretty good for Thursday. Thursday's threat, as there is a notable dry air layer within the mid levels of the atmosphere, also known as your elevated mix layer. And there is definitely a very good amount of clockwise turning based off of observed soundings I saw this morning as well. So the tornado threat is going to be on a little bit of a lull. I don't really expect it to go crazy, let's say, but I would say that that threat will continue to increase, or will increase within the next several hours, as these showers do move onshore into more favorable conditions that will onset. Looking at the storm overall, it's definitely has improved after its dry air disruption, let's say. Although you can tell that that southern extent of the eye wall kind of collapsed on itself.
Really?
Maybe due to land interaction. I was looking at infrared, and if I actually pull it up here, maybe if you want to pull it up as well, if we take a look at infrared on the southern extent of the eye wall, and yeah, it looks like it kind of collapsed the southern extent of the eye wall, or the southern extent of the storm south of the LLC. So there is more robust convection to the north, though, which is probably why the storm is somewhat hanging on to a thread in a sense. But regardless, Category 1 Hurricane Nicole is advancing closeward towards Florida and will be making landfall near Fort Pierce, I would say, within the next maybe 6 to 8 hours. And any preparations must be rushed to completion immediately. And if you do not heed any mandatory evacuation orders, as I know there is a dozen of them out there, it is time to go, folks. You need to heed those evacuation orders immediately. And if you decide to ride out the storm, although it's not going to be like Ian, obviously, completely different storm, it'd still be recommended to start getting supplies ready, as if you have to ride out the storm, unfortunately, you'll still be prepared regardless.
Well, it's been an incredibly long time since a hurricane last made landfall on the east coast of Florida in November, but someone also pointed out in the chat that it's been 17 years since the east coast of Florida has received a hurricane landfall at all. Is that true?
How many years? I just got back to the desk, sorry.
17 years, which would bring us back to 2005, of course.
Let me just double check on that.
I mean, personally, I count Matthew because it was pretty close. I know it didn't actually.
When you had 2006, nothing happened. 2007, nothing happened. 2008, you almost had Hannah, almost.
Yeah.
Technically. 2009, nothing.
Speed it up, Ethan.
2010, nothing. 2011, nothing. 2012, I mean, some people argue that Beryl might have been one.
No.
So that's a hit or miss there. 2013,
short
nothing,
answer,
obviously.
no, none of them have since then. I've just recalled that. But it's actually been, only one storm has ever made landfall as a hurricane on the east coast of Florida in November, and that was in 1935. So we're looking, how long ago is that now? 87 years since we last had a situation like this, basically.
Yeah, and that hurricane had a real odd track. I remember animating it. It formed to the east of Bermuda, almost got very close to the North Carolina Outer Banks, dived southward, made landfall on Great Abaco Island as a Cat 2, or either in the margin between Great Bahama and the Abaco Islands, either thinned it, and then made landfall pretty much directly over Miami as a Cat 2 hurricane. And then went into the Gulf and moved northwest before recovering back east towards Tampa and dying off in the Gulf.
Crazy times.
odd track. So I guess that's something that both of these storms have in common. They both had very odd tracks, and oh dear, Nathan, you might want to have a look at the intermediate advisories cone.
Oh dear, has something bad happened? Well, before we do that, I
Yes.
want to talk to Vapor, who is with us right now, and you're joining us from Florida. I'm sure you're in the path of the storm, if I remember rightly.
I am directly in the path of the storm. I live in Fort Pierce.
Right, there you go. So how are things
Yeah.
there at the moment?
They are very calm, actually. I haven't had much rain today. It's mostly just been wind, low tropical storm force. Now, I think the highest we've gotten is about 38,
Oh my god.
39 miles per hour.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the cone. They've really made an issue there. This cone isn't a fair
I think that's real.
representation.
No.
It's really broken. I've never seen that before. That cone is depicting hurricane force winds out to 400 miles in all directions. That is not true.
Is that Hurricane Force in South
Yeah.
Carolina? What's going on?
Yeah, that is not evidently not true. Hopefully they fix that.
No.
But there's a
Yeah.
position update. It Storm's massive wind field has clearly broken their system. But yeah, Vapor, tell us about. So fairly calm there. I mean, we've been looking at this camera, which has been all rickety up at Cocoa Beach. So what do you put it down to?
I have no clue, actually. I mean, well, do you want to talk about preparations for
Sure,
the storm?
tell us whatever you
that I've
want.
taken? So what I have done, because I lived on like the northern part of Fort Pierce, so and the winds are gonna come. How do I describe this? The winds are gonna come wrap around from the north towards me for the first half of the storm. That's like gonna be the stronger part of the storm for where I live. So I put shutters all up on the northern part of my house and the eastern part of my house.
Yep.
To combat those winds, because we only had a day and a half notice to really put up anything. So I had to do everything today. We finished a couple hours ago, maybe it was 3 or 4 hours ago. And yeah, ever since then we've just been riding it out so far.
That's interesting to hear. And has everyone else prepared accordingly, or are people rushing at the last minute? Of course, it's after dark now, so really there's not too much you can do now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And how's the rainfall been? I'm looking at the radar, and your area has had 1 or 2 little bands of rain move through just now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've gotten about maybe half an inch, possibly up towards an inch of rain so far.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we're expecting probably maybe 3 or 4 more inches there as well, all near that landfall area. Anything else you want to bring to our attention? Have you heard about power outages? I heard little bits and pieces here and there about quite a lot of power outages, even down in Miami.
Yeah, there hasn't been many in my area that I know of. Probably in the southern half of the cone, maybe. Like down, I'd like past the southern half of the cone, because that's currently in the stronger part of it. Like going onto Florida shore.
Interesting. Well, you're in the track of the storm, so we're happy to leave you on the line here if you want. It's up to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll stay on the line, yeah.
Sure.
I'm gonna go outside real quick and record a little video.
All right. I know we
So,
spoke to
I
you
just
extensively during Ian as well.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Ethan?
I just was wanting to go over the flash flooding and tornado side of things.
Yeah,
if you
sure.
want, Nathan.
Absolutely.
So I know that if I could screen share, I would here, but I'm not sure if you know how to, Nathan. But could you turn on the day 1 outlook on your end of things on Vegas V3?
I'm not going to do that because it would mess things up. I'm just going to go to the...
Okay.
Is it on SPC or WPC?
SPC. But
We'll
tell
go
you
over
is-
there and show you the actual images on there. Let me go and What are we looking for?
Mm.
The severe outlook, or
Yes, the day one outlook, and
Okay.
that has a slight risk extending from Port St. Lucie all the way up towards almost to Jacksonville, not quite, and extending inland into portions of Orlando along US Route 192 and 441. We are going to see a embedded tornado threat with this, and it's mainly going to be with these cells that are going to move onshore and have the potential to briefly become or develop spin up tornadoes. This is pretty usual for a tropical cyclone to do this.
they're under
It's not out of the
5% there.
question. Yeah, 5% may not seem like a lot, but that is actually a pretty decently high amount for a landfalling hurricane on the U.S. Gulf Coast.
Certainly justifies a slight risk.
Yeah, and for tomorrow, that slight risk does move north, really from Jacksonville all the way up towards, funny enough, Jacksonville, North Carolina. So Jacksonville, Florida to Jacksonville, Florida, both in between. You have cities like Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina, almost Fayetteville, North Carolina, where one of our team members are. You even parts inland like Vidalia, Georgia, Hazelhurst, Georgia, just name a few, all within the tornado threat. And that's mainly going to be on the eastern side of the circulation. And you even have a tornado threat for day three. This is for Friday. A large slight risk, mainly for portions of the Carolinas, the eastern Carolinas. Once again, mainly that tornado threat being evident. Of course, we do also have that flash flooding threat. I'll deal with Mitchell here in a moment. That we do have that flash flooding threat, as I just said. Mainly going to be for tonight, as far as that goes. Over the areas along and east of the Interstate 75 corridor in Florida. And that's mainly going to be for heavy rainfall. I'm not sure what the NHC or what Weather Prediction Center is forecasting for rainfall-wise, but I imagine it's some high amounts.
Got a graphic here for the flash flood risk, and they're under slights for the next 3 days in quite a large area of Florida there into the southern half of Georgia, the southernmost part of South Carolina, and then another separate, very strange-looking polygon there that extends through the Appalachians and then into West Virginia and then on towards western Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio even in there as well, and Indianapolis, Ethan, your place, just outside the marginal.
Yeah, we're not really expecting much in terms of rainfall from this system. Of course, I mean, you have inland areas that are under this flash flooding threat, but to be honest, Nathan, these inland areas aren't really going to be seeing much of a flash flooding risk from Nicole directly. It's more so the cold front that's going to come through. That cold front actually right now is bringing, of all things, a blizzard to the Dakotas over the next 48 hours, bringing upwards of 2 feet of snowfall up there. Of course, you can listen into our U.S. channel for more updates on that. But that cold front right now is actually dripped over really from Denver through towards the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. And that cold front is going to continue to drag off towards the southeast. And it's just a question of when Nicole sort of grabs onto that cold front and then it eventually rides it up towards the northeast. And that motion along that cold front is really going to elongate the center of circulation and basically tear it to shreds. And once it's getting up toward that cold front, it's off to the races with that cold front at that point. And that's going to bring in very, very cold temperatures behind this across all the lower 48. So I do have some slight concerns that might hamper some of the recovery effects if there is damage over here in the southeastern U.S. Obviously, it's not going to be a big issue over here where Nicole's going to be making landfall. They're actually forecast to be about average temperatures, actually. But you think of all these inland areas up in the Georgia, up into the Carolinas, that there is going to be some damage from tornadoes, from flash flooding, and from high winds. And, you know, with all these power outages up here that might result even from those strong winds, yes, wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour can cut power. You can have tree branches that come down on power lines, and all of a sudden you have no power. And with this cold temperatures that are going to be coming on down, people are going to want to have the heat on. And that's going to be a big issue, and frostbite could result from that. People oftentimes underestimate with this wind that's also be coming behind that. That's really going to allow frostbite to take hold, and that's a significant threat that I
Well,
do not
Ethan,
want to
I didn't
downplay.
I didn't expect we'd be talking about frostbite on a hurricane stream, but there we have it. Let's get some calls. Let's talk to Nicholas, if you're available. And Nicholas, you're on the air.
Alright, so I've seen Hurricane Nicole turn into Hurricane a couple minutes ago, but I was wondering about my state, about if it's going to bring any rainfall to my state of Kentucky. It might.
Yeah, well, we are just looking at a graphic a minute ago. Kentucky there, I think, was on the edge of the slide, if I remember right. But in any case, you're probably looking at 4, maybe 5 inches of rain in some areas.
Yeah, a majority of the
live in-
rainfall up there in Kentucky is going to be from Nicola's moisture and
I
interacting
live
with
in
that
central
cold front.
Kentucky, so I don't expect it to be that much rain. Since I live
No,
there.
it's not going to be anything major. This isn't going to be. If you remember back in 2008, we had Hurricane Ike, and Ike was a massive event up here in the Ohio Valley. It's not going to be anything like that. Sure, it'll be a minor nuisance, but it's not going
Yeah.
to be anything big.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the call. That was Nicholas. Let's take a few comments on our YouTube stream right now, and thanks for tuning in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll try and do some quick responses here. Do we think the flooding in New York will be like Ida's?
No,
I
no,
don't think so at all.
no.
Pardon me. Are any more models showing anything after Nicole?
I can check real quick.
I don't think they are
G-
anymore.
GFS has a little
God.
spin up
I mean,
to the
yes.
southeast of Bermuda. It has
That's-
that little thing that tries to do something. It's very small. Of course, it's only one run. But after the nothing within 5 days on the GFS besides that. And even beyond that, I mean, you have something that tries to spin up and eventually becomes a weak tropical storm that heads out to sea. Very, very long range. That's not going to happen probably. That's towards the middle to later parts of November. And that eventually recurves out to sea. And I personally think that it's pretty safe to say, even now at this point, with this cold front that's going to be coming on through, the whole continental U.S. climate is going to be changing very rapidly from a mid-fall climate to a hardcore winter climate.
Oh,
I think
boy.
that's just going to shut down really close the book, I guess you could say, on the landfall season of tropical cyclones here in the
Sure.
U.S. So I think Nicole's going to be the last one of the season for the continental U.S.
Kenneth asks, are Fulton County schools going to be closed because of this storm? I believe that's in Georgia.
That's Atlanta.
Probably not.
Yeah, too far north.
And someone has a friend that lives in Fort Lauderdale. What are your expectations for impacts in that area? Fort
Ethan.
Lauderdale right now just about on the edge of a band here.
Obviously, Fort Lauderdale, you have heavy rainfall, you have gusty winds. You're not going to get hurricane force wind. That's going to be up towards your north. I think really, as far bad as things are going to get is honestly probably what they're having now. I mean, maybe a little bit stronger winds, but other than that, it's not really going to be too bad over there. This isn't really going to be a massive event over there. Fort Lauderdale isn't even under a hurricane warning. Actually, they're barely within the tropical storm warning. So this isn't really going to be anything bad. I know that some people might be asking for Miami Metro. Miami's probably just going to be too far south. You might have some gusty winds to tropical storm force, but you're not really going to have sustained tropical storm force winds down there. It's actually worth noting that there's actually 3 counties in southern Florida: Collier, Miami-Dade, and I'm not sure what the southwestern
Mainland
county
Monroe.
is. Thank you. But those 3 counties aren't even actually under tropical storm warnings or any watcher warnings regarding Nicole at all. So that's some good news.
They are under a hurricane local statement, though.
Well, that's pretty normal. but
Yeah.
but they're not under. That doesn't mean that they're going to receive hurricane impact. That just means that they're not under any tropical storm watch or warning, or any hurricane watch or warning, or any storm surge watch
yeah.
or warning. They're just under, hey,
Yeah.
this is what's going to be happening for your county. And that actually brings me to another point that I want to bring up. If you want to see what the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center are saying for your specific area, go to your National Weather Service website at weather.gov, and you can go on that map. You can click at your specific location, and you can have this hurricane local statement, and that will have all the information you will need. Not many people read it, and it's a very good statement and very good product that the National Weather Service put out.
Sometimes we do read those on the air as well, and if we get a chance, we might. Just to mention right now, Freeport in the western part of Grand Bahama just entering the eye right now.
I'm pretty sure that they've been in the eye, Nathan.
Well, radar showing that they're just entering the eye.
It's probably a very messy eye, though.
It is, yeah.
By satellite imagery.
Granted, it is a bit of a messy eye, but
I mean, satellite imagery is completely horrible, to be honest.
I just marked before where the center of the storm was, just north of Grand Bahama. So the center of the storm.
Are you sure that it's north of Grand Bahama? Because Recon says that it's over Grand Bahama right now.
How long ago? It's very close. It was over Grand Bahama not long ago, but it looks to me as though it's over water again now.
It might be, but Recon did just do a southwest to northeast pass, and they did find the center just inland over the northern center part of the island, northeast of Freeport. So it is still over the island. They did get flight level winds of 80 knots. So that would probably support around where the storm is right now, intensity-wise. And SFMRs, they did have a few suspect ones. I'm not going to read those out, but they didn't find any reliable recorded hurricane force SFMRs, and that's on a AF306. So they didn't really find anything in support of hurricane intensity SFMR-wise.
We better take some calls here. Let's see if we can talk to Shoham R. Hi, you're on the air right now.
Yeah. Hi. Hello. How you guys doing?
We're all right. What are your thoughts on the call?
Yeah. So I was just looking at Nicole's Hurricane Nicole's intensity over the past few hours, and like on radar, I was just looking and I was watching that at just a few hours ago at 21Z, the northern portion of Nicole was kind of weaker, and the southern portion of Nicole was kind of stronger. And now, like a few hours later, or like an hour ago, I noticed that the southern portion has kind of just weakened in intensity, and the northern portion has intensified. So I was just wondering the reason for that, and just like what kind of caused it.
Are we talking about like the inner eye wall here, or the outer parts of the storm?
The outer parts.
I think that's mainly to do with the dry air in the area.
Is that the reason for the eye just being kind of the way it is right now?
I think that's really just due to how the storm looks right now. I mean, looking at the water vapor imagery, there is a lot of dry air in the vicinity, and I'm sure that also because of the storm structure just helping it look the way it is.
Not nearly as bad as it looked yesterday.
Yeah, it looked horrible yesterday, but I'm sure that that part of that is just because of how massive it is. I mean, when we're talking raw mileage here, you have to give me a minute. I'm just going to calculate just how
NHC said 485 miles to the north side. Let's just take a look at their cone again and see if it's been fixed. This was what the cone was showing, and that's clearly wrong. They have fixed it now. There we go. I guess the storm got a bit too large for the National Hurricane Center's machines there, but that is the latest wind field, and you can just see how extensive those tropical storm force winds are, halfway through South Carolina potentially.
I just want to point out, Nathan, the storm's influence right now goes all the way, and I can't believe this even, goes all the way over toward the central coast of Louisiana.
Yeah,
That
it
is
does.
ridiculous.
It
And
does
as
when you
far
look
as
at
it goes
this long shot.
eastwards, that goes over towards Bermuda. So if we're talking like raw distance from like west to east, that's over 1,000 miles. That is a massive for a storm in November. I mean, when we're talking about November storms, they don't really get this big.
Well, there's not
I mean,
many in
sure they
the
get
first
big.
place, though.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can talk to someone else. Let's invite Goodman Nodus or Non-Us on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
go ahead.
Oh, so I've watched your footage since Hurricane Ian. That has really helped me out and my family because well, we're Hispanic, so we can't really understand what the National Hurricane Association says at times, and it's hard to translate. So usually I get like your simplified information and give it to my family, and it was very helpful.
That's good to know. Is there
Yeah.
anything you'd like to say about Nicole right now? Is it affecting you?
Not really, but I am in the path. I'm kind of in Plant City, which is a small town away from Tampa, but I do live near one of the massive interstates that connects directly to both Orlando and Tampa.
Yep.
So what do you think would happen to Nicole once it passes over Plant City?
Along Interstate 4,
Plant-
Ethan.
Yeah, Plant City is west of Lakeland. You're not really going to be seeing too large of an impact over there. You might see some gusty winds at times that might get up towards hurricane force. But I don't really think that things are going to be too bad over there. You might have, you might get these strong bands that might come in and knock down some tree branches. But overall, things aren't really going to be too bad. I mean, another thing that you could possibly look out for is the flash flooding risk. Just pulling up the rainfall forecast. They're only forecasting really around 2 inches of rainfall over there. So not really going to be too bad of things over there. It's going to be just more so a minor inconvenience, really.
There's another question I just spotted in
That's
the...
good to hear.
Sorry about that. Just another...
Sorry.
Go on, you may as well go ahead.
Oh, okay, because usually around here in Plant City, where I live, like anything that happens, like for example, a branch falls down and stuff like that, it like completely knocks over like everyone's Wi-Fi. And currently, after Ian, like the cable companies have like tried to get the cables underground, but I don't know if Nicole's gonna delay that because they were talking with the gas station earlier about it, and they seem a little hesitant to put the cables underground during a hurricane.
Yeah, I would say so. But thanks for your support, and it's nice to hear that we've been helping you during these 2 storms that have happened recently. And thanks for the call. Just wanted to just a comment that went in earlier, asking whether the National Hurricane Center might be doing hourly advisories now. I've not seen them say yes, but it wouldn't surprise me. It is a hurricane, so.
Let me look. No, they are not doing hourly updates yet.
I'm surprised.
They could change that. They did it without notice on a few hurricanes already this year. I
Right.
think they did it with Ian. So they might. But my guess probably right now is probably no. Not even up until landfall. I don't think.
I think they will.
People oftentimes, a common trend that I've been noticing with Nicole is people are really overblowing the threat with this storm right now. I also want to point out, Nathan, but I know that you bring someone on. We have Tim with us now.
We'll talk to Tim in a moment, but first, Rain Swish, you're with us right now. You were on our stream last night. You're also in the Lakeland area in Central Florida. What have you got for us?
So, yeah, I noticed I'm still pretty much directly inside of this cone. And what I'm noticing is that this storm is gonna down 5 miles. And I don't have an exact wind speed on how it's going to be when it actually reaches me. They have it quite north of me. Do you know if you could let me know what my wind speed would be by the time
We're
it gets
probably
here?
looking at moderate tropical storm now.
Okay.
I don't know what you
If I
think,
had to
Ethan.
guess, sustained winds tops, you might get up towards 65. NHC do forecast 50 miles per hour west of Brooksville. That's in the northeastern Gulf. So it could get up
Huh.
towards 70 miles per hour at your location, but I wouldn't really bet on the wind threat being too big. This isn't really going to be that big of a event. This should be more just a minor inconvenience for many Floridians.
Oh, we would hope so.
Okay. Yeah, well, it was mainly I can take a video of how it's going to be early this morning. Well, early tomorrow morning that is. And try and
Yeah,
send one
well,
in.
yeah, it will be morning when it'll probably be daylight by the time it gets to you.
So yeah, have a good one.
Thank you. Let's try and get some more people on here. Some people have been waiting. James Goof. Interesting name. Hello. Welcome to the stream.
So I have a question about the storm. Why do some hurricanes, like on radar, why do some of them like not have eyes? And why does this one do? Because I've seen a couple of hurricanes. I think Nate didn't have an eye on it when it made landfall. Back in 2016? Can't remember.
Yeah, Nate, in 2017, it was a brief hurricane that made landfall on the Gulf Coast, I think it was. Ethan, have you seen anything like that?
I don't really
think in
know if it
Reconnaissance-
has. It doesn't really have like any correlation to the storm's intensity. It's just more so just how organized or how unorganized the storm is.
Okay.
All hurricanes come in all shapes and different sizes, so it really honestly just depends on how organized or how the storm structure is.
You see an eye on
Also-
radar, though, it is a sign of strength. But then again, it is. There are all kinds of
Ian,
different
when it-
circumstances.
Also, when Ian re-intensified, it had like a low-level eye too. So like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
this reminds me of like when Ian hit the Carolinas or Georgia. I can't remember now.
I mean, typically, Nathan, just for something what you said earlier, I mean, typically you do, whenever you see an eye on radar imagery, that does typically mean that the storm has significant strength, but I don't know about that having a direct correlation with it being a strong cyclone, because I've seen even weak tropical storms have eye-like features on radar.
No, not direct correlation.
Yeah, because like stronger storms, like when Fiona hit Nova Scotia, it didn't have an eye, but it was like Category 3 and it didn't have an eye.
Well, that's
I think
it. You're
it
more
was
likely to
more
see that
tropical.
with the extratropical ones. They're moving more quickly, and they're just a different breed, really. Well, Fiona certainly was.
Yeah, Fiona was like
Also,
crazy.
it's also worth noting, Nathan, we just got a recon penetration of the
Oh,
eye.
all right.
So,
Oh.
southeast or northwest pass. I haven't gotten the data yet, but I have known that they had just made that pass.
So is
on
it strengthening now?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the recon data
All right,
comes in. If I had to guess, it's probably still around the same. Honestly, right around where Nicole is right now at 75 miles per hour, that's probably going to be as strong as it can get, just due to the storm organization, just due to how massive it is, and due to the dry area in the area. Sure, it might get a little bit stronger up towards 80. It might get a little boost from the Gulf
Hopefully
Stream.
not.
Hopefully not, as you just said. But no, we're not looking at really anything really higher than that.
This storm also doesn't seem like 100% tropical. Like it's not as tropical as Ian. Like it still has some characteristics of a subtropical, but not as much as earlier. Like,
I think you may be
I've
right.
noticed that it's like, I don't know, because it's like really, it's like the wind field's like really huge and like there's like less convection on it. So I don't know why they don't designate like subtropical hurricanes at all. They only say subtropical storms, subtropical depressions. So
Well,
I'm
yeah,
wondering if they'll
I mean,
update that.
There's only about 4 subtropical hurricanes that have ever happened.
Really, were they designated as a subtropical hurricane?
I don't know, but they were either a long time ago or they weren't recognized formally at the time. I think the last
Oh yeah,
one was like I forget the name. I think it was Joel
and
in
those
the.
hurricanes too.
Well, maybe we're getting to some vague territory there. But thanks for the call anyway. It was nice to have you there. We had loads of questions that came in on the text right now, and you can start your message with Force 13 all in text to get noticed there as well. We're doing our best. There's loads of content coming in. Zach says, do you think the eye will pass over West Palm Beach, and how big is it?
I think West Palm Beach is just too far south.
Yep.
How wide the eye is per radar? If you can just give me a minute here.
Well, it's about as big as Grand Bahama.
Yeah, it's around 65 to 70 nautical miles wide.
Really?
Around there. Yeah, per the Miami radar.
Bigger than Lake Okeechobee, at least.
Yeah.
Is there a chance for a tornado outbreak?
There's always a chance for that. There is.
If I can provide a little bit of input, Ethan, I'm honestly thinking that tomorrow and Friday are actually going to be where a tropical tornado outbreak could materialize, because you're going to have a setup where you have a lot of clockwise turning, as well as very steep low-level lapse rates that are obviously, the steepness is boosted by the EML in the 700 millibar level. And given with the clockwise turning and sufficient low-level free cape, or basically just low-level instability, I'm not going to say that tornadoes cannot be ruled out tonight 100%, as we do have a slight risk. I'm thinking Thursday into Friday is looking like the greatest potential for a tropical tornado outbreak. I'm not going to say that it's going to be to the level of Ian, because there was a heck ton of more moisture with Ian. So, I mean, nothing can be ruled out, but we'll just have to monitor the future trends and whatnot.
I would like to point out that a lot of people, and this isn't even posted anywhere on the graphic, but the Storm Prediction Center's outlooks actually go until 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time the next day.
Yeah.
So if I had to guess, the outlook concerning day 1, which is today, is mainly for the morning hours of tomorrow.
Yeah.
After Nicole has made landfall. So that's like that gap between
Absolutely.
from where Nicole makes landfall to 7 a.m. Eastern, that's what that day 1 outlook is concerning, that general time frame for tornadoes. Sure, we could have some before then, although will we? We don't really know. It's unlikely, but it is still possible.
I mean, there are some extremely weak, very extremely weak mesocyclones now popping up on radar, but they're extremely weak to call them anything. But, oh well, we'll have to see what happens.
Let's get some more comments as well. Holar says, how severe will the impact be on the southwest after Ian? I'd imagine those areas aren't really going to be affected very much. And could we see this storm become Sandy 2.0 because of the cold front?
No.
Short answer, no there then.
I did see another question earlier, and I want to ask this particular to you, Nathan. What was the last hurricane season to have 2 tropical cyclones make landfall in Florida?
Yeah, I was just going to read out that one, actually. I'm trying to think.
You said that you counted Matthew. You said that you counted Matthew, though, for 2016.
Well, the answer...
2 hurricanes. It can't have been long ago.
With 2 tropical cyclones making landfall in Florida the same season. The answer is... Last year.
Last year. Which
you had Elsa. You had Elsa. You had what was its name? Mindy. And you also had what was the other one? There was one more. Fred. That was it.
That was a hurricane too.
So, well, it was a tropical cyclone, not a hurricane. The last season to have
they specified hurricanes though.
Oh, they did?
But anyway, there's the little
2005,
trivia.
wouldn't it be? Well, it would be 2005, because you had
Nathan,
Katrina and Wilma.
Didn't you say that you counted 2016 for Matthew and Hermione was a hurricane as well?
Oh God.
Also,
I mean
2020
Matthew.
was.
I mean it doesn't really count, but it was pretty damn close. A few more questions here as well. How does Nicole compare to Eta during its landfalls in Florida?
Completely different.
Yeah, Ada was much more tropical. Even by the time that it got to Florida, it was still much more tropical. Ada wasn't really a huge system whenever it got to Florida. This is much more. It's got subtropical characteristics to it. It's huge. Ada was very compact. Even when it was moving parallel to Florida, it still was fairly compact. This really doesn't have that pure tropicality to it like Ada did.
I'd say to be compared to what Ian looked like when it was traversing up towards South Carolina with its hybrid nature and extremely large wind field, except it does have a little bit more of a concentrated eye, although the eye wall is completely lacking. It's not the most impressive eye wall I've seen.
Yeah, wanting to check up on that as well because the radar appearance seems to be unraveling a little bit, but we'll get on to that in a moment. Another comment, what are the impacts in North Georgia? My school is shaping it up to be very bad as we had severe weather drills.
Severe weather drills are pretty normal. Everyone goes through those. That's just normal school life, to be honest.
They
up
do
in
that
North
like-
Georgia, up in North Georgia, like I did before, not really going to be that bad. Sure, you might get some gusty winds and some heavy rainfall, but nothing really too impactful up there.
Let's take another call. Typhoon Tip is on the line in Florida.
Hi guys. So
Hi.
I live in Bradenton. Is that like bad if it hit us? Like I think it'll be around like 20 miles per hour for us.
That's on the western coast, isn't it, if I remember right?
Yeah.
Near Tampa?
Mhm.
So I would say probably tropical storm force winds for you. Let's just go back to the wind speed probabilities and just take a look at that again. Yeah, pretty much half chance or higher if you're anywhere in the Tampa Bay area, even if you're right on the west coast. If you're inland from the city of Tampa eastwards, then it's very high chance of tropical storm force winds for you there, 40 miles an hour at least.
Oh, I also live near like Manatee River. Like it could take me like around like 10 minutes to walk there.
Right. So flooding
Wait.
concern?
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna have some like flooding.
I'm not
There might be a
sure.
small risk. It might be a
Yeah.
very small. It might be a very small risk, but to be honest, the flooding issues that you saw during Ian are not going to be present during Nicole. Nicole really isn't going to be a massive flooding threat. Sure, Nicole is moving slowly, but it's not lingering over an area like Ian was. You know, whenever Ian was coming ashore. Oh, how fast was it whenever Ian was coming ashore?
Oh, gee, now you're testing.
Let me just look this up. Yeah, Ian was moving around 10 miles per hour whenever it rapidly intensified. And when it made landfall, it was moving at 9. So, yeah. And right now, Nicole's moving at 13. And that number is only going to go up. So, this isn't really going to be lingering. This isn't really going to be lingering over an area for a while. It's going to be moving off pretty quickly. And given the broadness of the system, you're not going to be having heavy rainfall. You know, with tropical cyclones, you have heavy rainfall really throughout the whole thing. With the hybrid systems, you have heavy rainfall and strong winds spread over a very large area, and that's going to limit the flash flooding threat and the wind threat, and that's what we're seeing right now with Nicole.
Yep, enormous storm. Thanks for the call there. And I am in realization that we've neglected some of our other members that I was supposed to introduce earlier on, but I'm sure they don't mind. Tim is also with us in North Carolina, and you may still be in an indirect crosshair of this storm later on in some of those slight risks coming up in the next few days. But what's your take on Nicole as you see it this evening, Tim?
Good evening, Nathan, and to the rest of the team. And looking at Nicole at this hour, it is definitely a lot more disorganized than what it was, say, about 5-6 hours ago when we were looking at it over on the U.S. side of things when we set our automated stream up. This was definitely a storm that definitely had more of that full convective structure that we normally see in a full-blown tropical cyclone when it was starting to intensify and get up towards the higher intensities. Right now, it definitely does look like that it is starting to become a shell of itself. That whole entire eastern side is really getting devoid of any convective activity. Those cloud tops almost are non-existent on that eastern side, and it makes me wonder how long, if it is going to make it to the Florida coast, how much of it's going to be left.
But Tim, we saw this last night, and look what happened. It was doing exactly the same thing last night, and it was looking like it was dying off. And I said I said last night, you know, I fully expect that tomorrow it will make a comeback with those cloud tops, and lo and behold, it really did. Are you sure this isn't just going to do exactly the same thing and rebound as it reaches the coast of Florida?
I mean, it is very possible. I mean, unless you want to chalk all this up to the diurnal heating cycle that we normally see cause these cloud tops to blow up and then fade away. And now maybe what we're looking at is we're going through probably a diurnal minimum cycle of where the daytime heating's gone away and the cloud tops are starting to cool off. So by the time we get into the overnight hours, early morning hours, we could see them start firing back up right before this gets to landfall.
And it does look like it will be an early morning landfall at this rate. We're expecting landfall at some point between 3 and 6 a.m. local time on the east coast of Florida. So it could be a long night for many. As of right now, it looks like it's just on the northwestern tip of Grand Bahama, and we'll be covering this storm in depth with more comments and questions and our live phone in. You can check, it's the first link in our description, it should be, to get into our Discord server and join the phone in if you're interested, and we'll be taking more calls in the next hour. Patrick?
Quickly, I just want to provide an update regarding the current amount of power outages in the state of Florida
We'll have to take it after the break, but I'm sure there's been quite a few. But we'll be back in just a short moment, and we'll throw it to Patrick as soon as we're back. Stay tuned. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hurricane Nicole continuing towards the coast of Florida this hour. As of 8 p.m, it has winds of 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars. It doesn't look like the National Hurricane Center are doing hourly updates. People were speculating whether that might happen or not. It looks like they're content to stick with the 3 hourly updates that they're currently doing. Hurricane warnings in effect across the northernmost islands of the Bahamas and for part of the Florida coast. Thanks to Phenomenal Fishing, who became a member about 10 minutes ago on our channel. Thanks for joining us and thanks for your support. And a few questions that just came in there. When does hurricane season end? That's on November 30th, fingers crossed, but sometimes you can get out of season action. And Walked Jungle says, what impacts will Orlando see? Looks like they'll get at least moderate to possibly strong tropical storm force winds and possibly hurricane force gusts even, and quite a bit of rainfall, up to 6 inches possible. At this point, I know our team have all kinds of things to say, so let's talk to Patrick, who we had to cut off just before, to talk about power outages right now. Patrick, what's the news? Oh, I'm really sorry about that. I forgot to fade you up. Patrick was literally just telling us about what power outages. Well, he was about to read out the numbers, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's all right, no problem. So, in Nassau County, 2. In Duval County, 591. In St. Johns County, 110. In Flagler, 30. Volusia County, 130. Brevard County, 1,340. Orange, 12. Seminole, 0. Lake, 1. Polk, 13. Osceola, 69. Palm Beach, 4,120. Broward, 660. Miami-Dade, 1,920. Mainland Monroe, 0. Collier, 40. Hendry, 60. Okeechobee, 70. Martin, 90. St. Lucie, 491. And Indian River with 2,090. Those are just a bunch of counties on the eastern and southern fringes of Florida that have the most concentrated excuse me number of power.
Bless you.
Sorry about that.
All right, there we go. Ethan, you've got a recon update for us?
Yes, we do. Recon went in and did a southeast to northwest pass and got flight level winds of upwards of up to 70 knots. That's what they got a peak around there. And they found SFMR surface winds of around 50 to 55 knots. So that around support a general intensity a little bit lower than what the NHC has right now. That doesn't mean that it's weakened, although then they did a northeast to a southeast to northwest pass. The hurricane force winds are on the northeast side, so they have missed out on the hurricane force winds, and as such, this is probably still a hurricane. But that winds I just read out, that light level and SFMR winds are entirely on the northwest side, actually. So that's what we're seeing just north of Grand Bahama right now per recon.
Can't ignore the radar appearance, which is really showing enormous gaps in this eye. Western side, which is the side facing the radar, you'd expect to have the strongest returns there, actually showing the weakest in terms of which part of the eye is the weakest there. There's nothing there really on the inner eye wall. What do we make of this?
Dry air's in there. It's
So
gotta be.
dry air might be preventing this storm from getting just that little bit stronger, which could make a big difference to some of these communities facing landfall.
Let's hope that case remains.
Yeah, so we're here for 4 hours tonight until... What time do we finish? 11 o'clock on the East Coast. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and I'm got my own little monitor tracking the storm's eye behind me as well. You can actually make out the Grand Bahama there and the eye of the storm, the center of the eye, just on the northwestern tip there of that island behind me. And I'm joined by my team this hour. We have a few people on with us. We have David with us. We have Patrick, Tim, Ethan, and I guess you can call a full-time guest tonight. We've got Vapor, who is live pretty much in the projected landfall zone. Any update from you right now? What's the latest there?
I did send you a video. I recorded it, I think, about 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago. I sent that to you if you want to check it out.
I'll do my best to try and get this video on the air.
Alright. Yeah. It's dark out, so it's not really the best, the best lighting, but it's something.
I'll try and get it on the air, but it's going to be difficult.
Okay.
Because we're not primed for showing videos that you send over here. But I think we do have it now. So let's take a look at what you've got. This was from Vapor in the last hour. Yep. Well, you can hear the wind and the tree blowing about there, and certainly rain falling. Not got a very steady hand, have you?
I was like really it was really windy out.
Wow. Fair enough.
Blowing my phone everywhere.
Fair enough. So that's the conditions there right now. That's Port St. Lucie, right?
Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce. And that really is right in the crosshairs of this storm's landfall right now, from what we've determined. All right, let's see if we can get a caller. Let's see if we can speak to Philly's Still Better. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, you're live on the air.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you right now, but
Oh.
if you could just get a large pepperoni over, that'd be really nice with extra pepperonis.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the call anyway. I don't think we can do that. But let's see if we can get 2 Art on the line right now as well. They were on our stream yesterday. I don't know if they've got any comments for us. Hello?
Hello?
Hi. What are your thoughts on Nicole?
I actually was wrong yesterday.
What did you say yesterday?
It wasn't gonna become a hurricane, but it became
well,
a hurricane.
Well, join the club with Ethan. Sorry, Ethan.
Thanks.
Oh, well.
But
Really
it
appreciate it.
certainly has become a hurricane. 75 miles per hour, pressure 980. Visual appearance. Be interesting to see what Recon get in that northeast quadrant. But is there anything else you wanted to add tonight?
What?
Is there anything else you wanted to say about Nicole tonight?
Not really. I'm just here because I had nothing to do really, but hey, at least I
Right.
talked to you guys.
I guess. Well, that was interesting. And let's see if we can get Rain Swish, who wants to chat with us again, up there in Central Florida.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so I've noticed it's starting to get a lot windier than what it was because I cracked my window to get a breeze, and it's loud. I can hear my tree is starting to go crazy. Bunch of stuff is happening, but not like crazy yet. And I'm hoping it doesn't get like bad. But my tree is swaying a bit. And it's a tall tree, like a big tree, so.
And that really goes to show the size of this storm, pretty much towards the west coast. They're already receiving fairly strong winds from what you're saying.
Yeah, its air mass is huge.
Certainly is. All right. I'm sure you'll be back with another update later on. Thanks for the update there. We've not been able to speak to David yet, who's also on our panel right now. So, David, floor is yours. Has he picked that moment to take a moment away?
He might have. We are sending in a few other webcams around the area, Nathan. We actually have one for the Fort Pierce Inlet and Jetty Cam. This would be right in the St. Lucie area.
Ah.
That I just sent over to you. So we've got that one that is functioning. You're not going to be able to see much because it is dark, but you can see the rain and the wind whipping across the camera there.
Yeah, let me just try and get this on the air here. So, what you're about to see is the live feed from Fort Pierce Inlet.
Yep, that's the Fort Pierce Inlet and Jetty Cam right there in St. Lucie.
What are those little lights?
Those look like dock lights to me.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to see that. Driving rain. And a few blinking lights out there. I imagine they're navigation. Yeah. So, that's the scene there. But unable to see a huge amount on that picture.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a few other better webcams for us so we can get a little bit more visibility.
I don't expect we'll be able to see a huge amount tonight.
Well, no, I mean, it is after sunset, and the second set of outer bands of Nicole are starting to roll in. So, I mean, this is what we're seeing is just the start of it. Obviously, conditions are going to start deteriorating the closer that Nicole gets to landfall there.
Something I haven't considered to look at tonight, though, is actually some of the traffic cameras. There's loads of those around Florida, so I'm going to have a
Let me see what I can find on those for you, Nathan. I'll see if I can get a couple of those relayed over to you.
Oh, no, I'm taking a look myself. I mean, it's difficult to get these to shareability anyway, so I'm just looking around
I can always drop a link to them.
Well, they're all in one place. Let's see what we've got around the... Somewhere around Jupiter, maybe, is probably the best place to be looking right now for potential cameras. Probably the closest point to the main part of the storm. I still doubt we'll see a huge amount on these webcams either, but...
Hey, Nathan?
Yeah.
I also want to point out really quickly that if anybody does notice this, the terminal radar at, I believe this is Fort Lauderdale, this is not Fort Lauderdale, the TPBI,
it's Palm Beach International.
Palm Beach International, yeah, that TDWR is down, so you're most likely to be looking for KMLB, and KAMX is going to be your best radars to track the overall system.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier today when preparing for our streaming.
Or you can try the TDWR Fort Lauderdale, but that probably won't work too much.
Here's a traffic camera right now. Oh, a glitchy one. Looks like the cars are going at millions of miles an hour. Yep, that's Interstate 95. Not far from the Jupiter area in West Palm Beach. And you can see it's a pretty wet surface, but not too much going on in this location yet. Don't know why it's not the first camera I've checked, and they all seem to be quite glitchy at the moment, so not sure why that is. But that just gives you another little perspective into what's going on out there right now as we go back to our satellite imagery. And its appearance getting more interesting, I think, is the operative word there. There's much more of a clearing in the quite evident eye, and on the northeastern side there's hardly anything there on satellite. Cut back to the radar, and it's the southwestern side that's looking extremely bare right now at every passing frame. There's less and less over there on that southwestern side. Dry air doing a number on it. It's going to be really interesting to see what Recon find in that strongest quadrant, because from what we heard from the other ones, Ethan, it's not quite cutting it compared to what it was doing earlier, so we'll have to see.
No, I don't think that anything. I don't think that really anything really stronger than what the storm probably is right now is what it's going to get up to. I think probably 75 miles per hour is probably going to be it for this storm. I mean, like I said earlier, can we rule out a little bit stronger? No. There is that possibility that it could get a little bit stronger. Though, will it? That is something that I think that we'll have to answer in due time.
All right, keep your comments coming in. Start your messages with Force 13 all in text. We're here until 11 tonight, including the National Hurricane Center's full advisory, which is out at 10. Some more questions then. How much rainfall would the whole coast of Florida get from Nicole? We're looking once again at maximums of 5 or 6 inches. And there's a few more that came in there as well that I'm trying to get to. Axomius says, didn't think I'd be asking this question again after Ian this year. What could I expect in Brandon, Florida? I can't remember where that actually is, but I know...
That's east of Tampa.
Alright, so quite similar locations to what a few other people on our stream have been in that we've spoken to tonight. Those areas should get, probably, if you're anywhere east of Tampa, tropical storm force winds guaranteed, possibly moderate to high-end tropical storm force winds maybe, and significant rainfall, potentially 4 to 6 inches. And another comment, what wind could the south central Pinellas County get? So that's out in the Tampa Bay area as well, and that's a little bit less certain. Tropical storm force winds aren't guaranteed in the St. Petersburg area. I think they're running at about 40%, something like that, 30 to 40%. If the storm deviates westwards, I think you'll get tropical storm force winds, obviously. As it is right now, I think you might anyway. It is an enormous storm. It's a tough one for places like that. And once again, rainfall amounts fairly similar, up to about 4 inches probably. So, Patrick, I don't know if you're looking at current radar, but any further synopsis from you?
Any further synopsis? Not much at all, honestly.
Some
Mainly
people
just
still asking about Miami. Do you think they're going to be out of the woods here?
if we pull up the SPC Day 1 advisory here, I'll pull it up on my screen. I would say if you're in Miami, if you are anywhere from a line from Miami southwards, actually, yeah, Miami is definitely not getting any tornadic activity or any severe weather activity at all. They may just get some light to moderate showers on the southern end, but honestly, if you're anywhere from, I'd personally say if you're anywhere from Port St. Lucie northward, that's basically where we're going to be looking at the greatest potential for tornadoes and obviously strongest winds. But
basically anywhere north of the eye.
Basically anywhere north of the eye, and then within the northeast quadrant once the storm wraps around and slams into the coast. But other than that, I'm not really seeing anything. Although there are these hints of extremely weak mesocyclones, but there's really not a lot to say if there's anything happening. So we're gonna have to wait a little bit for that. We're gonna have to wait a while for that. basically right as landfall occurs, the tornado threat should uptick as it moves further inland. But like we've said, it's not possible. Actually, it's not entirely impossible to rule out that some of these showers that do move on land within the next couple of hours before the main uptick to some degree could produce tornadoes. It just has to depend on if these cells here can have low tops in order to produce said storms. And actually, if you take a look near Vero Lake Estates, I am taking a look at that right now, and that actually might be a shower trying to actually put on some rotation here, Nathan.
Really?
Yep, just south of Fellsmere to the way far northwest of Port St. Lucie. There is a rotational area over there that I'm going to be watching that could be trying its absolute hardest to...
I think I'm seeing it, this little feature here, but I'm not sure you can see it well on my screen. But if you can see it behind me, you can see the eye feature. And Patrick, your thoughts on what's going on with that southwestern side of the eye as well?
I think honestly, it's been degrading a little bit. Or actually on current infrared, it looks like it's collapsed a lot. If you look at current infrared, there's not a lot of it. Yeah, it is open, and there's really not a lot of convection, but you can still see robust convection to the north. So the storm is still definitely hanging on in the slightest, and we will have to potentially watch out for that area near Vero Lake Estates, as if that continues to maintain itself, we could be potentially seeing our first tornado warning of the stream, if we want to even say that, as usually with these kind of, we usually deal with the more of the preparedness and hurricane landfall and hurricane analysis. But as you have seen with Ian on our Ian stream, it can be pretty much be made obvious that the tornado threat is also there, combined with the heavy rainfall and high winds. So I will be monitoring that in the background closely, and if there is anything that does pop up within the stream, I will relay it to you, Nathan, and you'll be able to break it in instead of us having to say, oh, I'm sorry, Nathan, there's a new tornado warning and such.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get these radars running, the local radar, and at the moment it's not... Oh, it is working for me now, actually, so...
And that rotation is completely broadened out, so moving on.
Well, that's the first threat dealt with then, I suppose. And here is a proper look at the radar now that the storm is more within range. This is from the Melbourne radar, which I think is what most of us are looking at now. And that clearly shows sort of like a crescent shape of the eye right now on the right-hand side. There's really nothing there for a good quarter of the southwestern part of the eye right now on radar. So interesting to see what this might mean. And I mean, I'm always an optimist that a storm might be weakening. I don't know. On the contrary, when you look towards the northern part of that wall, it's actually building in reflectivity. So not sure what to make of that right now, just that it is wide open there on that western side, and I guess that will just keep it at its current intensity right now without any strengthening. But let's zoom in on some of those locations that we were looking at just then for these potential spin-ups, and you can see quite a few little cells moving through from Palm Bay southwestwards from Melbourne towards the southwest, all across that coastal area. And back to the wide shot. Let's see if we can take some more calls then. Let's see if we can get Hurricane Alex on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi to you. I was actually really not expecting Nicole to become a hurricane so sooner before landfall. I thought it was going to just barely become a hurricane, like maybe 5 to 6 minutes before landfall in Florida.
Very specific there.
Yeah. Sometimes I can be very specific.
Right. 5 to 6 minutes before landfall. And then, yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I was expecting, actually, to be honest, to reach hurricane
Actually,
status just as
earlier
it was
before
making
Nicole
landfall.
became a hurricane, I was thinking Nicole was not going to become a hurricane at all. But Nicole's a hurricane now.
Well, that it is. And thank you for your comments there, Alex. Tim, what are you picking up right now? Anything new?
At the moment, it looks like the Florida power outages have kind of died down a little bit. They were about 12 or 13,000 earlier. It looks like it's dropped to about 6,700. So looks like the co-ops have gotten out into the Miami-Dade area and have gotten some of those power outages restored. And overall, right now, Nicole is just being what we would normally see of a weakening hurricane. Obviously starting to get some of the more impacts on shore, and obviously the southwestern side of the storm is open on the radar. That's what we've been seeing. But Recon, last time I checked, is still in there. We got 2 flights in there. AF306, which is running at the 850 millibar level. And then NOAA 3 is running at the 700. So when Ethan was calling out that south to north pass, that was from NOAA 3 at the 700 millibar level. And they're definitely getting a big variance on the winds. Obviously, NOAA, the AF306 being lower in flight level are going to be picking up stronger winds. So when we were getting those 80 knot winds earlier, that was from AF306 that was at the 850 millibar level. NOAA 3 looks like a peak of about 71 knots flight level at the 700 millibar level. So we're definitely seeing a big variance on the winds between those 2 flight levels. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the NHC does with that data in terms of their next advisory, which should be due out in an hour and a half.
Yep, that's when the next update is from National Hurricane Center. We're looking at live pictures right now from Cocoa Beach, which is pretty much the main one that we're looking at tonight. And you can see the waves still rushing in there. Difficult to get a perspective on how far those tides are moving in compared to normal, of course. We can't really see down, we can only see out towards the pier head, but still things looking reasonable there, I would say. At this time it is still on the edge of the storm. It's just about getting some of the little scraggly bits of red on the reflectivity, so things might get more interesting here soon. Jose says, any reports on the storm surge levels currently in the Florida East Coast? And that there's been a lot of beach erosion in Brevard County and where Cocoa Beach is at. I heard a lot of comments about erosion before we started the stream, actually, so it could be one of those that is really notable for wrecking the beaches, basically. What do we think?
Yeah, beach erosion is definitely going to be an issue with any tropical cyclone. Obviously, the stronger it is, the more the storm surge will impact the beaches. I know when Isaias came through the North Carolina area back in 2020, I actually had pictures of how the beach looked down at Fort Fisher, and you could see from where the normal water line was up to where the water line had eroded the beachway. NHC called for about 9 foot of storm surge during Isaias. You could definitely tell there was 9-10 feet of beach literally washed away from where the normal high tide cycle would be. So all of these eastern facing beaches are going to be facing that same issue.
All right. So, from Recon then, right now, are they heading back? Are they heading to the northeastern quadrant anytime soon? Because that's where we really want to get that. What's that?
306 is coming around. Probably looks like for a northwest to southeast pass. NOAA 3 just finished a southeast to northwest pass. They may be swinging back around for another pass. As close as this storm
they're
is.
going back to base, Tim.
Are they?
Yeah, they're climbing out. They're at 18,500 feet and climbing right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the NOAA 3 is bugging out. They're probably going to be going back and back to their station at Lakeland.
No.
Which is where they're based out of.
No, they're actually north of Orlando right now. They're heading northwest right now. They're heading to Biloxi. Which is
that would be that would be their secondary site. And that is the one thing that many people don't realize is that the Air Force, Recon, and NOAA, they do have multiple airports they can go to for refuel and repairs. We saw that during Ian when one of the NOAA planes had gotten, from what we understood, had gotten hit by lightning. They dropped down at Port St. Lucie and then had a ferry all the way over to Houston for repairs.
Also, can we confirm if Recon did put a drop zone down in the center? I believe I did see a hint of 977 being picked up, or is that still speculated?
Let me take a look.
This is off of NOAA 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at NOAA 3 right now at their data.
We'll stick it on this dual screen right now so that you can see the live camera and the radar at the same time.
Yeah, there was extrapolated that would suggest 976.2, but again, that's extrapolated, so I wouldn't put much stock in that.
Let's get some comments right now. Any impacts in Connecticut from Nicole?
No, that's going to be more so from the front that Nicole's going to be riding and dissipating on.
All right, if there's going to be any impacts, you're probably looking Friday or Saturday.
Dante says, do we think the conditions will get any worse in Coral Springs than it is now?
I'm not even sure where Coral Springs is at.
I'm sure that's further south on the East Coast, if I recall. Yes, it's near Boca Raton, between there and Fort Lauderdale, inland a little bit. So for your area right now, I would say there's still room for it to get just a little bit worse. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're not out of the woods yet in Coral Springs. And it's another question here. Would Hurricane Nicole speed up before landfall? It should do, at least a little bit. And could land be hindering development of the eye wall?
Yes. But it's probably dry air.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be land doing that. And how many more storms could we get in the Atlantic after Nicole? Let's hope none. That would be nice. But I don't know. You never know in the Atlantic. Let's see if we can talk to Cows, who is now on the line. Hello.
Hi guys. So I live in Boca Raton, and currently I think I'm starting to get into like the main bands of the storm. Is there? I see that big band coming like off right outside of Port St. Lucie. Is there any chance that reaches us, or is that just gonna be too far away?
It's on the way. I think it will get to you. And that would be in about... just trying to figure out the time here. Within an hour, I think you'll get some pretty much heavier rainfall.
Okay, because I live I live a little bit further inland, like I'm not right on the beach. But right now I looked out my window and I don't have much wind right now. It's more just consistent rainfall. Um, but right now it's sort of like, and also I've been looking at tropical tidbits, and I'm not sure if you guys see this, but from her like most recent aircraft recon, there's been finding like higher like winds than 75. I'm not sure if you guys see this.
Would that be flight level?
Yeah, low level reconnaissance.
Yeah,
Uh,
so of course you've got to translate it down a little bit for surface winds.
yeah, I got you.
But I imagine it's still throwing up the same amount of numbers, Ethan. Thanks for the call, Cows.
Of course, yeah.
What was the question again?
Just about the winds in for Recon. Are they getting the same winds as before?
Flight level winds, they're getting around there, maybe a little bit lower even. SFMRs, though, are definitely lower.
Well, that's interesting, but you know what? What concerns me, if this weakens now from a hurricane to a tropical storm, as soon as it loses hurricane status, people are going to say, oh, it's gone now, and it's still going to have a 485-mile wide wind field.
No, NHC are not going to drop it from hurricane status.
Well, they might have to if there's no evidence.
No, they'll keep it as one. I mean, sure, they might drop it as one towards like landfall, but
Well,
they
that's what
won't
I'm
do
saying.
it now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But even if it's closer to landfall, people. I mean, I guess it'll be overnight, and people will be going to bed thinking it'll still be a hurricane. Anyway, I'm just saying that people's attitudes when it loses hurricane status, interest goes through the floor, and people just think that it's over. Well, it certainly won't be.
Now, that is probably the biggest mistake that you can make with any tropical cyclone is if it gets downgraded on a category intensity or gets downgraded from hurricane to tropical storm, the threat is not gone. You still have the lingering effects of the storm surge, of the winds, of the heavy rain that are so associated with it, and those threats still are very real. So until this completely passes and is out of your area, don't let your guard down.
At this point, I'm wondering how much progress this storm is making compared to the mesoscale forecasts and all the other forecasts, but the mesoscale which has higher definition in timestamps, because that'll be a clue to telling us just when landfall might occur. So I'm just going to go back to 21Z HRRR model and see where it had us at this time. And I think it is... Ooh, I think it's pretty much right on cue, actually. And that still means that the landfall's going to be quite a while. We're talking here about landfall probably at about 3 in the morning to occur just north of Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, probably.
Hey Nathan.
Yeah.
If you actually take a look at Melbourne radar just to the east of Cape Canaveral offshore, we can see a impressive supercell with a pretty good rotation signature off the Melbourne radar that is moving to the southwest, which may require a special marine warning to be issued.
Which one here? The one with the higher reflectivity?
The one with the higher reflectivity, yes.
So that's the one that's coming right in towards Melbourne.
That is correct. You can see it on velocity clearly. We'll have to watch that storm if it decides to haul. I also did put a picture of it in the call chat.
This is the velocities. Let's see what we're getting in that. And looking further south there towards the storm. A few upper level winds into the 50s there all across the Florida Peninsula. So some of these areas will be getting tropical storm force winds along the coast there from radar depictions. So that's interesting. So keep watching that area if you're involved, just south of Cape Canaveral. As we take a look at the rest of the storm once again here on this radar imagery. You're watching Force 13 live, our coverage on Hurricane Nicole, which is a enormous Category 1 hurricane. Not particularly strong, but very large, and wide-reaching impacts are likely. A wind field of nearly 500 miles outwards on the northern side. And the hurricane force winds extending out around 10 miles according to the National Hurricane Center. And that's predominantly on the northern side, where the strongest winds are, on the northeastern side, and we'll be finding out more from Recon later on, hopefully, if they're still buzzing around the storm. So you say that there's one plane still left in there?
Yes. And he's going back in for a northwest to southeast pass.
Ah.
Yeah, just AF306 still on there, Nathan. That is our flight that is at the 850 millibar level. So interesting that they are that low in it while NOAA 3 was at the 700 millibar.
Should mention this camera at Cocoa Beach will be very close to that cell when it moves inland. So we'll watch this camera for a while. I doubt you'll end up seeing much, but certainly getting quite windy there at this location as we look at the camera. It's rocking just a little bit more than it was earlier on. And this is the live shot at Cocoa Beach, looking out over that pier. Not seen a soul on it, which is good. Let's not forget what happened during Ian when we saw a few morons who were out and about during just before the worst part of Ian. That pier got completely swept away. Crazy, man. But yeah, no one out there right now, which is good news. Keep your comments and questions coming in live on our YouTube chat right now. Start your message with Force 13 all in text and it will light up for us and we can take your comments on the air. And you can also phone in to our room here on our Discord server. There's a link underneath our description right now which will take you right to the phone-in area. And we'll be able to take your calls.
Nathan?
Yes, David, go ahead. Finally get to
National
hear from you.
Weather Service Melbourne. Yep, National Weather Service Melbourne has put out a posting on their Twitter account. Hurricane Nicole is about 110 miles east-southeast of the Treasure Coast. The main impacts will be occurring overnight. Be sure to have multiple ways of receiving weather alerts overnight, and the high tide cycles will bring storm surge and intra-coastal flood impacts equivalent to or greater than what occurred this morning. And the message is stay away from the beaches and flooded areas. So that's from the National Weather Service.
And I've got a few other little bits and pieces to read out here from hurricane local statements that Ethan was mentioning much earlier on in tonight's stream. A storm surge warning for the entire east central Florida coast for the potential of 3 to 5 feet of surge above ground level. We of course know that already. Large breaking waves will exceed 10 feet along with numerous life-threatening rip currents. Strong winds and high surf will combine with ongoing high astronomical tides to bring significant storm surge and major beach erosion, especially around the times of the next several high tide cycles, which will occur this evening from 8:15 till 9 p.m., 8:45 to 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, and 9 to 9:45 p.m. on Thursday evening. There is a potential for this evening's high tide and Thursday morning's high tide to allow for overwash of dunes, inundation of immediate low-lying coastal areas, and the potential for vulnerable coastal structures to be compromised. Coastal areas of Volusia County, which suffered serious damage from Hurricane Ian, remain particularly vulnerable to additional beach erosion and inundation from coastal flooding. Some coastal structures in areas of weakened dunes or damaged seawalls may be compromised. Additional significant surge expected tonight along the Treasure Coast closer to where Nicole makes landfall, including flooding along the Intracoastal and St. Lucie River Inlet in low areas. Loads of information that they have on here. Stay out of the battering and dangerous surf and off the beaches. Small craft operators should stay in port until winds and seas subside later this week. Increasing rain bands and areas of heavy rain forecast to produce rainfall totals of 3 to 5 inches, with localized amounts up to 8 possible tonight into Thursday. And that's pretty much the main gist of all of that. Also, a flood watch in effect for all of East Central Florida through Thursday afternoon. Take this storm seriously, they say.
Yeah, Nathan, you actually make a really good point with the impacts of Nicole, is that some of these same areas obviously were hit by Ian no more than 2 months ago, and it's not been that long for recovery efforts to be fully completed. There's still probably a lot of areas where there is still debris getting cleaned out of these communities, still some of the erosion that has not been fully replaced along the beachfront on the western side of the state of Florida. So those areas, as you pointed out on the statement, are particularly vulnerable. So even if you're on the western side of the state, south of Tampa down to Cape Coral, even though the main impacts are going to be on the eastern side of the state, do take some precautions, as some of these rain bands coming through could produce some gusty winds, could knock some power out in these areas, and that could make some of the logistical recovery efforts even more of a hazard than they have been the last 2 months for these areas.
Here's a live look at Interstate 95 right now near Jupiter. And they're getting some heavy stuff coming in on the radar bands just around now. So this is one area that's getting quite a lot of heavy weather. Still glitchy cameras, I'm not sure why. But I guess you get the picture there. It looks like it's died completely now. Well, just our luck. This is a longer range satellite imagery loop on how Nicole has progressed throughout the course of this afternoon into this evening. And you can see just where those clouds have ended up. Will that core redevelop just before its final, well, its main landfall? That's going to be the big question for all of us throughout this evening. To reiterate all of the information as we know it right now, from the 7 p.m. advisory, which was the last one from the National Hurricane Center, putting Nicole at 75 mile per hour winds, sustained with higher gusts, moving west at 13 miles per hour. Pressure 980 millibars, although it may be lower now. Hurricane warning for the Abacos, Berry Islands and Grand Bahama Island in the northwestern Bahamas, and for Boca Raton to Flagler-Volusia County line in Florida. A tropical storm warning for Bimini and for Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton, and for the Flagler-Volusia County line to South Santee River, South Carolina, north of Bonita Beach to Indian Pass, and for Lake Okeechobee. A storm surge warning for North Palm Beach to Altamaha Sound, Georgia, and for the mouth of the St. Johns River to Georgetown, and for the Anclote River to Ochlockonee River, Florida. A hurricane watch for Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton and for Lake Okeechobee, and a storm surge watch for Ochlockonee River to Indian Pass, south of North Palm Beach to Hallandale Beach, and Altamaha Sound, Georgia to South Santee River, South Carolina. tropical storm warnings in effect all the way up there, by the way, into central South Carolina, and that's because the storm's wind field is that large. Look at that. If you've not seen it yet, that is how large the storm's wind field currently is. That extends out 485 miles from the center on the northern side. We'll get a full update from the National Hurricane Center in their next full advisory, which is in just over an hour. That is, of course, 10 p.m. is when we'll get that latest news from the NHC. Another comment in the chat here, being that it's very cold outside, will that break up the storms rolling in? How cold is it in Florida tonight?
It's 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Whatever
doesn't
that
seem
is
that
in
cold.
Celsius. It's not that cold now. It's pretty warm out right now.
All right.
It's usually coldest at around 6 a.m. though here, obviously. So.
Yeah, hello?
Rain Swish, you're back with us.
Yeah, so you said there's storm surge in parts of east central Florida, correct? Or
That's
am I
what the
mistaken?
main part is. Yep.
Yeah. My mom just got out of surgery and she's currently in the hospital in Orlando. And I was wondering, will anything happen to Orlando specifically?
I don't think so. Certainly nothing on Ian's level in rainfall, and probably not really on Ian's level for winds either. So if we're comparing it to that, at least Orlando won't be so bad. Tropical storm force winds, possibly high-end tropical storm force winds at times, but I don't think it's going to be particularly dangerous for those who are sensible.
Yeah. Also, may I mention one more thing?
Go ahead.
I have a website that has camera views of most parts of Florida, going with like Daytona Beach, Port Canaveral,
Right.
and like Lake Mary, and multiple places in Florida. If you want me to send you the link.
Well, we can't really broadcast links, but I mean, I don't know, you can post it in our Discord server.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. And Vapor, I just wonder how things are at your place right now. Once again, one of our callers here who's decided to stick with us. It's nice to have you with us. Directly in the line of this storm. So, are you seeing this big band that's moving in right now?
It's starting to come in, yes. I went outside about 20 minutes ago. I sent you another video. If you want to stream that, you don't really have to. But the rain is starting to fall in. It's pretty light right now. It's probably going to get heavier within the next couple minutes, I'd say.
Certainly looks that way. So things could be ramping up there fairly soon. We've also got Christian with us right now. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
And as we look at another one of these traffic cams on Interstate 95, I can't remember where exactly this is now. I think it's further south. What are your impressions of Nicole? Did you expect it to reach hurricane status?
I mean, I kind of did, but I wasn't exactly holding out hope that it would. If anything, I was holding out hope that it wouldn't. But here we are, I guess.
And what do you make of its appearance right now?
I haven't seen it in recent frames because I've been busy doing other things. But as far as I heard, it wasn't looking so hot.
It's not looking great, but I'm still concerned about that northern eye wall band that's just wrapping round again just a little bit. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to make of it right now. I think it will probably keep its intensity for a little while.
Yeah. Also,
I
what
reckon
what did the NHC release like a few minutes ago before they ended up fixing it?
What, the broken cone?
Yeah, you should definitely show that on
Yeah.
stream again.
Well, we
cone.
don't have it now because they changed it. So, but you can track back through the stream if you want that golden image there from the National Hurricane Center at the start of last hour, was it? Or yeah, last hour.
Don't worry, Nathan. Knowing our team and little epic fails like that, someone of our team will go back and they'll find that.
I'm sure they will.
Or just find it on the Wayback Machine.
And I just found it. I'm gonna take a screenshot
Have you?
of it.
Must have been posted online. Anyway,
I
let's
think-
look back at this satellite imagery, and again, just look at those clouds. I mean, that looks like it's falling apart at the seams. But still, it's a chunky band. That northern band there looks like it's got some real power in it, but the rest of the storm looks like it's falling apart. But we can't be sure yet. And I gotta, just warn everyone, I am very much an optimist when it comes to spotting signs of weakening. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting though, Nathan. Looking at the infrared, you would argue that, yeah, it is starting to weaken, but when you look at that longer range loop of the regular visual, there was a bit of a convective burst that was on the western side that has started to wrap around to the southern and southeastern side. So,
and that concerns
it's
me.
really hard. I'd say it's really hard to determine right now if this is weakening or maybe just maintaining its strength right now.
We're going to take a short break here. We'll be back again in just a few moments. Stay tuned. Force 13's live coverage on Hurricane Nicole continues after this. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live, looking at the live shot from Cocoa Beach in the central coast of Florida there, with Hurricane Nicole bearing down on the east coast of the state. It's a Category 1 hurricane, 75 mile per hour winds sustained with higher gusts and a pressure of 980 millibars. Hurricane warnings for the northern Bahamas and for the east coast of Florida, with storm surge warnings out there as well. A storm surge of up to 5 feet expected in some of these areas. Is it strengthening or weakening right now? I guess that's going to be the question of this hour. Whilst there's been a massive hole opening up on the southwestern side of the radar imagery of the storm, some suggestions of new convective bursts on satellite imagery, as well as still staying quite strong on the northern side of that wall on radar, throwing up some question marks as to what the intensity of the storm might be now. National Hurricane Center will give us a definitive update at the end of this hour at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, we're here, myself and my team, chatting about this storm, and we are here to take your calls as well, and your comments in text too on our YouTube chat. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio once again, and you can see sort of the silhouette of the storm's eye behind me. You can still make out the coast of Grand Bahama there, and where the storm is in relation to that, moving up towards the west. But when everyone's talking, I tend to just look behind me and take a look at this storm for myself and see what my next point is going to be. But my name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and I'm joined by my team this hour. We have a few people with us, most of the same faces that you saw last hour. We have David, Patrick, Tim, Christian, and Ethan. And as a guest with us tonight, we have Vapor, who is live with us from pretty much where we were expecting the landfall to be, around Fort Pierce is what we're expecting right now. Vapor, any new updates from your end?
Not really. This band that we were talking about a couple minutes ago, I think 15, 20-ish minutes ago, it's starting to ramp up like we just were thinking about.
Yeah. It is quite fractured in itself, to be honest, as well, but there's a few
It
little...
is.
Yep. There's a few big reflectivity markers there that is approaching the coast. Patrick, anything interesting within that right now?
Actually, I was going to point out the environment out ahead of the these showers moving in is we currently have I'm going to say this right now, that these showers are currently moving into more favorable conditions, as we do have although it's pretty far inland, we do have areas of 200 to 300, 0 to 3 kilometers storm relative helicity with more farther inland, and these showers are moving into it. Also, taking a look at photograph trends, those photographs are going to become more clockwise, which is what you usually see with tropical tornadoes, and there is a decent amount of cape on the coast, but scratching from mesoanalysis stuff for a little bit. Looking at radar, I mean, I'm not really seeing anything too crazy. I could be seeing something near, maybe, I don't know where this is, but maybe this is something to the northeast of Port St. Lucie, like about maybe a couple dozens of miles off the coast. It's on the far end of the radar, so I'm not so sure about that. But I can say for a fact that these showers and outer rain bands are moving into more favorable conditions and will continue to move into these favorable conditions. And the tornado threat should relatively begin around the time of landfall.
All right. So our call in tonight is live on our Discord server. There's a link underneath our in our description. I think it's the first link you'll come across to join the server and take part in the phone in if you want to call in. And you can stick around and chat with fellow storm trackers around the world in our community server as well. But the more I'm looking at this imagery, the more the eye seems to be coming back around, and I'm starting to not like it very much. Let's just go back to satellite imagery. Well, first of all, you can take a look there at Cocoa Beach once again, but just let's get onto the satellite imagery, this one, and once again, is really showing off that eye now on that satellite imagery, and it's really opening out with that convection on 3 sides now. So this is interesting. I really don't know where it's going to go from here, whether it's going to be a little bit of strengthening or whether it might be weakening. And I guess the obvious conclusion would be that it's probably staying the same, and that's probably what the National Hurricane Center will do at their next update. They're not really finding the winds at this time, but they're getting pretty low pressures. We'll prioritize new callers, so let's see if we can talk to Jay Hotry. Hello?
Hey.
Hi, you're live.
Hey, I live in the Florida region, and it's pretty scary to be getting hit by this hurricane.
Yep. Any thoughts about it?
I'm pretty much in the direct line of fire it's gonna be going through on the East Coast.
Yeah. So around the Port St. Lucie area?
Yeah. You got all these niggers.
Sorry about that. These things happen sometimes.
Yeah. We do have an update on Recon, Nathan.
Go on. What's the Recon update?
Latest pass from AF 306 on the northwest to southeast pass. Peak flight level was 70 knots. And they did get a drop zone into the eye that got 982 millibars. This drop would have been right off the coast of Grand Bahama, so it's going to be a little sketchy on those numbers considering how shallow the waters along the Grand Bahama coastline are.
Something I've just noticed about this storm right now is that it still appears to be moving mostly west. And I think we should be expecting to see more of a northerly turn by this point, and I think it might not be doing it as much as we were thinking so far. What do we think on that? Certainly looks to me as though it's still moving just a tiny bit north of west, nowhere near enough to really turn towards the north like that.
And Nathan, I'm thinking about the discussion detail NHSC. It'll be interesting to see whether they change that information, the direction. And the NHC has ruled out any intensification in the Gulf.
Yeah, there's really not going to be any further intensity. The sea surface temperature's much too cool in that northern part of the Gulf there. They're only hovering at around 21, 22 degrees, I think, in some of those areas. Now, apparently, we're hearing already of flooding reports in Fort Lauderdale right now. So
yes.
I'm going to see if we can get some views of that. So that's just what I've heard here. So we're starting to hear our first reports of some flooding conditions. Going to try and get a view.
being on the coast, salt water, highly corrosive when it comes to motor vehicles.
Yeah, that's also true. Just scoping out some of these cameras behind the scenes around Fort Lauderdale, there's certainly a lot of water around. I'm not seeing any actual flooding, but it's certainly a very wet picture in that area right now. Just checking all the different cameras just to see if, well, there's actually a little bit of, looks like there's some surface water there. See if we can bring to you this camera.
Atlantic Boulevard, Sunrise Key, the canal, the Grande Canal. So mainly the canal estates, Nathan.
This is Fort Lauderdale right now, and you can see the traffic coming at us there. And it looks to me as though, I think I can see a reflection on the left-hand side. That's some surface water, I think, a little bit on the left-hand curb. So, probably a few scenes like this developing in the Fort Lauderdale area. Let's see if there's any comments on our stream right now. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. And it's pretty quiet, actually. Do we think that Nicole might affect Tallahassee? Anyone? Well,
I'm sorry, Nathan. I'm discussing a couple things with our producers behind the scenes there.
Tallahassee, I think we might get 3 or 4 inches of rain.
Yep. And we do have a super chat on our
air at this point, and I don't know why the internet decided to die for a moment there. So let me see if I can get everything sorted out right now, and we can see if we can get our team back on the air. We're just trying to do 10 things at once. But we are back here, and what can I say? I mean, I can't control what happens with our signal. You would think that I was in the path of the storm, but in truth I'm nowhere near and in a fair weather location. But I guess that's just how it happens sometimes. You've not missed much. Hurricane Nicole, still a 75 mile per hour storm. The National Hurricane Center will be updating at the end of this hour, and we are eagerly awaiting their update. And there may be new warnings that might come out or any new information regarding the storm's intensity, and we'll bring it to you as soon as it occurs.
Have we gone over the 0Z ATCF at all, Nathan?
Well, I did have a quick look and I didn't see anything new. Has something happened?
Nope.
Oh.
Sustained winds 65 knots at 75 miles per hour, pressure 980 millibars. So that's right about where it is now. So
I thought you were getting ready to point out something at another base, and Ethan, you had us all scared there for a moment.
I mean, we have 93B, but that's about it as far as...
You got me scared because I thought something had happened with Nicole.
I mean, something good has happened. There is absolutely... Get this.
What was that?
That would have been my email going off.
Tim,
One for
was
the
it
blooper
you?
reel.
Oh, man.
There's one for the blooper reel.
Oh, you're better than that, Tim. Come on.
I will say, though, Nathan, on infrared imagery, there is absolutely, get this, there is zero convection between the storm center and the west coast of Florida. Zero.
Really?
Nil. Check infrared imagery on the western side.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I now I see what you mean. Technicality there, but yeah. That's fascinating.
I mean, just because there's nothing there on infrared imagery doesn't mean there's not high winds, heavy rainfall. That just means that the cloud tops aren't going as high up into the atmosphere as, say, its cousins to the north are.
Let's take some calls at our own peril. Rage Doritos, you're on the line.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast right now, and it's hitting as hard as my dad hit me last week.
Wonderful. So there's another one. Let's see if we can talk to Dimitri, who is also on the line, someone that we can trust. Hello.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep,
Yeah,
you're
we hear you.
live.
All right. I have a question, and it's regarding when the updates come out. It gets a little bit awkward, especially when the clocks change. So when do the main updates come out, and then when does the intermediate update come out? Because it gets a little bit weird sometimes when the clock is changing.
Yeah,
Next
well-
update is due out in 40 minutes.
Yep, that's going to be a full advisory. 10 p.m.
They when it comes to the updates, they don't go. These are based on Zulu time, so they don't have so they're all back an hour, right?
Yeah, the UTC times are still the same. It's just all of the advisories will come out 1 hour earlier. So when we were getting them at 3, 9, 5, and 11, they're going to be 2, 8, 10, and 4.
That's right.
And those for intermediate advisors will be then around 5, I think. Okay, so 2, 5, 8.
Hold on.
11.
What did you just say, Tim?
Normally, they would be coming out like 5 and 11.
Yeah, and now it's
Normally.
4 and 10 because of the clocks went
Yes.
back. Those are the
Okay,
full advisory times. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Anything else you wanted to add?
There's a lot of there is a lot of the focus is on the western side of the storm when I look at the satellite imagery. The eastern side is. I'm not sure if it's struggling though. Do you think about that?
I don't really know what's going on with it at all. We need recon on that northeastern quad. That's what I say. So apparently we were hearing things about flooding in Hollywood as well. Did I hear that right? Hollywood, Florida?
Not that I'm aware of, Nathan, but I'm trying to take care of a few things behind the scenes at the moment.
I'm sure I saw something regarding that. So if you are in the area, please let us know how you're holding up. Certainly looking at a few of the Fort Lauderdale cameras, there's a lot of water and rain. I'm not seeing much flooding yet. There's a few little areas that might have some deep puddles, but I'm not seeing anything too bad just yet, although we don't have cameras on the actual beaches. So those areas might be the ones that are flooded. So we don't have a full view of what's actually going on. But we do have our live cameras. Of course, we have our one here at Cocoa Beach. And we'll leave this on as we pick up our next call. Let's see if we can get Ryan on the line. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, before I get to the questions, I want to say everybody trolling you all.
Well, 2 isn't everyone. A lot of people are here for good reasons. I mean, come on, I'd rather not be here doing coverage on this storm myself, but necessary, it's necessary to do it because this is what we're good at, and we got to put out our service, and we help people. People say that, so we keep going at it. But what's your point right now?
So my question is, with you guys said earlier, not going as north as you guys kind of predicted, could the track kind of like shift south in the 10 p.m. update?
I think there is scope that it could move just a tad bit south the way it's going right now, because I'm still not seeing a pronounced... There's a little bit, but I'm really not... It's a close one.
And then
It's
my
too
other
close to
question
call
is,
right now.
yeah. And then my other question is, where do you think a second landfall in the Florida Panhandle could be?
It doesn't look like it's going to move far off the coast, so somewhere around. Some people are suggesting Cedar Key. You know, maybe further up the Bend area.
Okay, well that's all I had.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So it's going to be a pretty straightforward forecast.
Quick question. Has the NHC fixed that weird map
Yeah,
that
they did.
put down the last time?
They did, yes.
Oh, I sent it to you and you didn't show it yet. I don't think. If you want to show that on stream again.
Not
it already
necessary.
was shown.
That's more blooper material for us to use during the off season.
48D, thanks for your support on our channel this evening. We appreciate it. And a comment there: is there a chance that Hurricane Nicole will rapidly weaken before it makes landfall? Oh, that would be nice, but it's, you know, you can't. It's just not going to happen. It's there. It's going to stay strong.
Yeah, strong enough. In fact, Nathan, that we're going to finish up our viewers poll that we just had, and about 7 out of 8 think that Nicole is going to maintain intensity or potentially intensify more before it gets to landfall. So I think our views are right in tune with some of our analysis that this is probably going to be a hurricane right up to landfall. Whether it's going to intensify more, maybe 80, 85 miles an hour, that's really up in the air. I mean, structurally, you would argue that it may not have that chance, but anything is possible in the next 6 to 9 hours before this does make landfall.
I think the eye is improving here on radar.
It does, yeah, it does look like it is. That northern side is really starting to fill in, and we're starting to see that southwestern side start filling too. If they can close off in the next 2, maybe 3 hours, things could get very interesting.
Another comment: will this put on an extra 5 to 10 miles per hour? I don't know if you mean in strength or in movement. Probably strength. And I think it can. And what do we think is causing the southern side to be so much weaker and smaller? Well, it's always been the case, really, hasn't it? Since this storm first formed, that the southern side was struggling a lot more. But is there a particular reason for that, team?
I think Ethan nailed it earlier. Dry air may have got in here and disrupted this system a little bit, and it's in the process of trying to mix it out.
And could this be catastrophic for the Tampa Bay area? If so, are hurricane gusts possible in the Tampa area? I think you won't get hurricane force gusts there.
No, you're probably looking mid tropical storm force, probably 45, 50, maybe 60 miles an hour in some instances. But no, you're not going to see hurricane force gusts there, especially considering that the initial bulk of hurricane winds are only about 10 to 15 miles an hour, or 10 or 15 miles from the center. Now, tropical storm force, very possible, because we're seeing tropical storm force winds going on in some instances of 480 miles across, primarily on the northern side of the storm.
Okay.
The way that Cocoa Beach are hounding, the waves are hounding Cocoa Beach at the moment.
On our webcam here, yeah, absolutely.
hearing it was like 20, at least 20 feet.
You think?
No, I'm not sure if I heard earlier if it was around 20 plus feet.
What
The
was
wave
it?
height. The wave height.
Wave heights were around 10.
Okay, that's why. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
It was just one.
We're just taking a little moment of recuperation there, just looking at a few various things. And let's see if we can take a look once again close up at that radar. And you can see there once again the eastern side looks like it's really starting to come together again as it leaves the coast of Grand Bahama. It's just not sitting well with me how this storm is. It looks to me as though it is improving again. And this is a wide shot of what the storm's been looking like over the last few hours. And those last frames there just showing how really interesting it looks there. It's just a big hole with very shallow convection around it.
Nathan, the high tide somewhere at the Florida coast, 9 p.m.
Yep.
And storm surge is a critical component. I'm also thinking, sorry, I agree with your comment about Nicole looking good. I firmly believe that it's closing in, it's getting its circular. I think it's about quarter of the way to the southeast, but I also note what Tim said, and is the dry air dissipating?
Okay, we do have a buoy observation, Nathan. We actually have a NOAA buoy right on the tip of Grand Cayman, the 8 p.m. Yeah.
Or Grand Bahama.
Grand Bahama, sorry.
Yeah.
Getting my geography messed up this late. 8 p.m. Observations had pressure at 988 millibars.
Interesting.
And this would be right on the western tip of the Grand Bahama Island.
So that's well within the eye then.
Probably right on the southern side, probably a few miles out of the exact center.
Yeah, that's interesting. That would that suggest a pressure of what would that suggest? 980-ish probably.
982 millibars.
Right. So,
Trying to see if we can get some other information in and around this area right quick.
But of course, waiting for the National Hurricane Center's next advisory. That comes up towards the end of this hour, and we'll get information as soon as it comes in there. Let's just read out a few of some flood warnings that are currently in effect as well. The St. Johns River near Astor affecting Volusia and Lake counties. There's a flood warning there until further notice. And the stage right now is 3.9 feet. Major flooding begins at 4.0. Flood warning for it's all St. Johns River really. Above Lake Harney affecting Seminole County, also for that location. Currently 8.7 feet, and we're near water covering Whitcomb Road, happens at 8.8 feet. So pretty serious there as well. St. Johns River near Sanford as well, rising through minor flood stage. And that's pretty much it at the moment, just a few little warning areas, flood warnings on the St. Johns River. Back to our live view at Cocoa Beach, which we've been watching here for the last few minutes, and you can see the waves crashing. As we've heard earlier, we're not far from in fact, we're pretty much right on the high tide right now, happening at around 9 p.m. So this is possibly some of the worst moments of this storm for the surge, maybe, and for the waves tonight, with potentially another round tomorrow morning as the storm moves inland. If you've been absent for a bit, you may be a little bit surprised as to how late we're expecting landfall to occur tonight now. I know that, say, a couple of days ago we were looking at models that were suggesting that landfall would occur at around 11 or 12 o'clock tonight, but the latest estimates that we're now getting is sometime between 3 and 6 a.m. in the early hours of Thursday morning. So it's going to be a rough night and a long night there, and part of that depends on how far north the storm goes. If it makes landfall further south, then it will be a sooner landfall. But in the case of the NAM 3-kilometer model, which can be a bit bananas, but that is forecasting a Cape Canaveral landfall from here, and that would only occur by 6 a.m. I don't think that will happen, though. It will be further south than that and a little bit earlier. Some more comments. Will Pensacola be affected by Nicole? Not really. That's a bit too far away. And what time could Nicole reach the Orlando metro area? Let's check that last National Hurricane Center cone to give you a little idea of where it's going to be and when. So we're looking at probably, let's see, round about sunrise, I would say, that it will make its closest pass to Orlando before continuing off northwestwards. We'll get an update to this cone fairly soon when the National Hurricane Center put out their update, and as soon as it's out we'll have the latest info. Is there a chance that Nicole can reach 85 mile per hour winds? I think there still is.
I think that might be the peak that we get, if there is one that goes that high.
I think there's a chance, but I think it's more likely it'll stay at 75. And that's certainly, if there's no better direct observations, that's what I would stick with right now. And from what we saw, what we've heard about the pressure observations, is that it's probably not gotten any deeper in terms of pressure, even though its appearance looks potentially deeper, the eye being maybe a little bit larger. With this latest trend on the satellite imagery. Let's just check that satellite imagery again there. Look at how that's developing. The high cloud tops moving into Florida already, and it's only lower cloud tops now separating the coast of Jupiter from the center of the storm's eye. But there'll still be some strong winds in there, that's for sure. If we go to which view is this? Not that one, but the unenhanced. Oh, that's we're looking for the close one, this one. The unenhanced imagery still shows there that there's still quite a bit of cloud. It's just a lot lower cloud and less dense that separates the eye from the coast. So by no means has Jupiter or anywhere along the coast of Florida entered the storm's eye yet. Radar obviously disproves that. And there's a close look again at that radar imagery there. This is Force 13 Live. We'll be taking comments and questions throughout. We're here until 11 p.m. and we're happy to take more questions. Is there a chance for it to stall? Well, thankfully, it doesn't look like that's going to happen anywhere along its track. And will there be lots of power outages in Orlando? I don't know if you can actually accurately forecast power outages, but Orlando will get some strong winds, so it looks like that might happen. And is there a chance the center goes straight through Tampa Bay? I think that's not very likely at this point. And just another comment there. How about Naples? Naples right now looks like it's not getting too much from this storm, and I think it will still stay pretty light for your area. Another comment there for the winds that they might receive on Daytona Beach. What do we reckon to that?
I think Daytona Beach is on the southern side, so they may get. Oh, they're on the north side. Okay.
Yeah, they're well
Yeah,
on.
they're above Titusville.
Yeah, I'm just messing my geography up all left and right tonight. I apologize for the
Yeah, they're in
singing.
North Florida, brother.
Yeah, I think they'll get some decent winds. If they're not already. I mean, this storm, this wind field is huge.
Nathan?
Go.
Storm surge is now impacting Hollywood Beach. It looks like a river between the Boardwalk and Michigan Street next to, I think it's Maracatu.
Yeah, it's a suburb of Hollywood Beach called Margaritaville.
Yep. And I posted a image.
Well, we can't get to that image at the moment, but I'm just looking at some of the Hollywood webcams. So it sounds like that flooding is surge flooding then, right?
Yes.
Because we've been hearing lots of reports of flooding this evening, and I haven't seen very much, so it obviously makes sense that we're talking about surge here. Unfortunately, there's hardly any traffic cameras that are along the coast itself, so we can't really see that area from the traffic cameras. I don't know why they don't have any along there. Even down in Miami Beach, they don't have any cameras, actually.
And the city of Jacksonville, we're approaching high tide this evening, and there is potential for roadway flooding.
All along the coast here, big event that's unfolding with that storm surge. Up to 5 feet expected in some of these areas, particularly near the landfall zone, of course. And a few more comments there. Thoughts on any tropical systems after Nicole? We've had that one a few times now. There might be a small little system out near Bermuda, but apart from that, I think the season's going to be over after that. Please. We want it to be over. But as of right now, not much information coming out apart from that those reports of the flooding along the shore. But we will have the National Hurricane Center's latest advisory coming out in the next 15 minutes or so. But at the moment, I guess there's a lot of waiting involved as the storm draws nearer. But lots of bands and heavy rain pushing inland now along Interstate 95 near Port St. Lucie and that kind of area. Vapor, what are you seeing over there? You're in the orange zone right now.
Yeah, I just heard outside. I was just like listening outside for a bit. Rain is battering my roof right now.
Yeah.
That's what I got right now.
Let's see if we can get a position estimate on this storm just at the moment as we continue to watch it get closer to land, just to give you an idea where we think the center of the eye is right now. Probably around 50, just less than 50 miles from Jupiter. Around about 48 miles. So that's how close the storm is to landfall at this point. The closest point of land, I should say, not the actual expected landfall zone. That's a little bit further away, around about 60 to 65 miles away. And that's something we'll keep monitoring. After our stream is finished tonight, we'll be redirecting you to our US channel, who have an automated stream running for this storm right now. You can go there straight away if you want by checking out Force 13 US. In the meantime, we're here on the main channel providing our thoughts and our coverage. And if you've got any comments or questions or want to pick our brains about anything particularly, whether it's to do with this storm or anything other tropical related stuff, then you can send your comments in by tagging Force 13 in the chat. We also have our phone in continuing for this hour and a bit. You can join our Discord server and take a look into our stage where you can phone in live. Try to behave yourselves though.
We do have some interesting observations here, Nathan.
Okay, let's go.
We have a NOAA buoy. This is east of Cape Canaveral, showing wave heights most of the day anywhere between 27 and 32 feet. Latest observation as of 40 minutes ago have 37 knots, gusting 53.
At
And
Cape
this is
Canaveral.
on the north side of and this is on the north side of the storm. This is NOAA buoy 41010, which is about 20 or 30 miles east northeast of Cape Canaveral. Yes.
Yeah, and once again, another reminder there that there's high winds all along the coast of Florida. If we look back at the National Hurricane Center's cone, look at all of that orange shading there. It's enormous. That's tropical storm force winds possible in any of those areas right now. That is a massive, massive zone.
I can tell you, Nathan, out of the 27 years that I've been tracking storms, which is, I think, probably the longest anybody on this team has been tracking, I don't think I've ever seen a hurricane be down by the Bahamas and prompting tropical storm force winds all the way up in Charleston.
Yep.
That wind field is just incredible. You're talking 400 miles on the northern side of the storm and less than 30 or 40 miles on the southern side. This is just incredible.
I think it might be a little bit more than about 50 or 60, I think, on the south side. But yeah, point taken. Here's another long view of how the hurricane has been developing this evening. Convection was initially very much over the center, and now it's been displaced all around this enormous eye that appears to be becoming more well established.
And Nathan, I've got some news when you're ready.
Yep.
The Fort Lauderdale police have put out a posting. The barrier island continues to flood due to the storm surge from the south end to the north end of the city. Traffic operations are now being severely impacted. Many roadways are now impassable. Attempting to drive during the storm is dangerous and should be avoided. So that is from the local police.
Here's a view in Fort Lauderdale right now, not Cocoa Beach, but Fort Lauderdale. This is probably the closest camera that we can get to the flooded barrier island. And you can see, well, there's headlights really obscuring a lot of the view there. But if you just pan down, you can see all of that rain ripples along the floor there. No flooding, but quite a bit of very wet surfaces. Of course, during these storms, hazardous driving conditions can cause all kinds of problems as well. But that's the current view in Fort Lauderdale right now, as closest as we can get to the flooded areas. We're sitting tight for the National Hurricane Center's update, which is due in about 10 minutes or less. Usually they're a little bit early. And we have a few more questions coming in here as well. Dante says, is it just me, or did it go through an eyewall replacement cycle in the last couple of hours? I think it wasn't so much that, it was more that it was it didn't really have an eye wall that had been completed to begin with, and it was sort of wrestling to try and do that. But the convection certainly went all over the place. It's a very odd situation what just happened. What are our opinions on the National Hurricane Center downgrading IOTA back in 2020? I think a lot of people agree with it. I still think it was a Category 5 at peak.
I think it was a Category 5 as well at peak.
So you'll get differing opinions there. And Amanda says that they're on Amelia Island, getting pretty good wind gusts. What do you see happening for me over my area in the next 24 hours? Where's Amelia Island?
Amelia Island? I actually don't know. Is that...
That's way further north, right? So you're pretty much
yeah.
Fernandina Beach area.
I don't know that area that well.
Yeah, so you'll be getting stronger winds throughout the course of the next 24 hours, I suppose, with this storm's massive wind field. I don't think it will get that bad for your area, but potential for that surge and coastal flooding, potentially. All along that Florida coast. And what else do we have here? Not much at the moment. Oh, Meteo First says, if it were to be September, what intensity would you think it would be? Oh, this would have had a shot to get to Category 3 at least. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, there was a question that was being popped up regarding
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt for the update here from the National Hurricane Center. The hurricane watch from Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton is discontinued. They're keeping it at 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars at the update. So still 70 miles per hour. The wind field, the northeast quadrant, 420 nautical miles, which is nearly 500 statute miles northeast, 80 southeast, 60 southwest, and 390 northwest. Enormous wind field. So no changes apart from one hurricane watch getting discontinued at the 10 p.m. advisory. Just check to see what their statements are saying right now as well. Just looking, trying to pick out some information here. So hurricane force winds now extending outward 25 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extending outward up to 485 miles, especially to the north of the center. A weather flow station at Juno Beach Pier recently reported a wind gust of 55 miles per hour, and a Seaman station at Settlement Point on Grand Bahama recently reported a wind gust of 55 as well. Estimated minimum central pressure 980. So that's the latest from the National Hurricane Center, keeping it at 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars. And we already have the discussion out as well, so I'm going to read through all of this. So the hurricane has large, intense bands extending quite far from the center, but does not have a distinct central dense overcast. Flight level wind observations from Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicated that the maximum winds are near 75 miles per hour. Dvorak's satellite classifications gave a slightly lower intensity, probably because the system does not have a classic tropical cyclone appearance at this time. Nicole has a large eye over 50 nautical miles in diameter and a very large extent of tropical storm force winds over its northern semicircle. Nicole has made its expected turn towards a west-northwestward heading, and the motion estimate is now 285 degrees at 11 knots. The system should turn towards the northwestern north during the next day or so, whilst moving along the western side of a mid-level anticyclone, moving over the Florida Peninsula and northern Florida. In 36 to 48 hours, Nicole should accelerate north-northeastward to the east of a long-wave mid-tropospheric trough. The official track forecast is about the same as the previous one and remains close to the multi-model consensus prediction. The hurricane has little time to strengthen further before making landfall in Florida. Weakening will occur whilst Nicole moves over Florida, and even though the center may briefly emerge over the extreme northeastern Gulf, it's not likely to result in any significant re-intensification. The system should weaken to a depression and become a post-tropical cyclone over the southeastern United States and merge with another extratropical low after 48 hours. Let's see if we can get the new cone. I don't know if they'll have updated it that quickly. Nope, we don't have the new cone there yet. But reaction from the team there, not too much of a shock with that new update from 10 p.m. staying as a hurricane. Any thoughts?
Nope, not at all.
I think
man.
that's
I think this was right on par with what we were anticipating, and Recon would support it. I mean, there's nothing higher than 70 knots, which once you reduce that down, which would be right around 65 knots, and pressures were still right around 982 from the drop zone. So I could see the NHC maintaining 75, 980, which is what they've been running with.
I think it makes sense. I definitely feel like it is not at the point of intensifying at this time. And again, I don't think there's a whole lot of time for it to happen and for there to be re-intensification. So I think it's going to hold at 75 at least for the foreseeable future. At around I think maybe at the 1 a.m. advisory. What I was trying to get to saying is there's a lot of talk about the averages at.
Sounds like we lost you.
He's calculating the averages.
I've no idea. We're looking back at our camera here at Cocoa Beach, and still you can see the waves piling in and a lot of water there. I'm obviously not used to this area, so I'm not sure what it normally looks like, but I imagine there's quite a bit of surge pushing in here.
Most likely.
And from what we're hearing, quite a lot of surge causing coastal flooding around the Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood areas in sort of towards southeastern Florida. So that's the latest we've got at this hour. National Hurricane Center have just come out with their update. We'll take a look at the latest forecast cone that they've come out with after this short break. Stay tuned. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hurricane Nicole, just a few hours away from making landfall along the eastern coast of Florida, remains a 75 mile per hour hurricane with a pressure of 980 millibars. Certainly not the usual appearance that you would expect from a tropical hurricane, but I guess it didn't form from tropical origins, and I guess that's what you get. Nicole, an extremely large storm with winds, tropical storm force winds extending out to the north around 485 miles. Huge. And hurricane force winds extending out 25 miles from the center. We're looking at this live shot from Cocoa Beach, just south of Cape Canaveral, showing quite a windy picture here at the moment, with waves rushing in. Around about high tide right now in Florida, around about 9 p.m. That's when it was, and as of 10 p.m. let's go through the warnings again before we introduce everyone and take some more comments and questions live on the air. So Hurricane Nicole, Hurricane watch from Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton has been discontinued. That's the latest news. All the other warnings remain the same. A hurricane warning for the Abacos, Berry Islands and Grand Bahama Island in the northwestern Bahamas, and from Boca Raton to Flagler-Volusia County line, Florida. Tropical storm warning for Bimini in the northwestern Bahamas, for Hallandale Beach to Boca Raton, Florida, and for the Flagler-Volusia County line to South Santee River, South Carolina. North of Bonita Beach to Indian Pass and Lake Okeechobee. A storm surge warning for North Palm Beach to Altamaha Sound, Georgia, mouth of St. Johns River to Georgetown, and the Anclote River to Ochlockonee River, Florida. Hurricane watch now just for Lake Okeechobee and nowhere else. Storm surge watch for the Ochlockonee River to Indian Pass, south of North Palm Beach to Hallandale Beach, and Altamaha Sound, Georgia to South Santee River, South Carolina. So that's the latest that we've got in terms of warning information as we enter our last hour of coverage tonight. We're finishing up at 11 o'clock. Landfall is expected at 3 a.m. roughly. And if you fancy staying on for the to track the storm throughout those night hours, this stream will throw you onto our US stream after we finish up, so stick around and it will just redirect you there with YouTube's new feature there. And that will take you through the rest of this landfall event. We'll probably be back tomorrow with more coverage as well, especially if we get an established tornado threat. For the time being though, the storm lies around 50 miles off the coast of Jupiter, and is slowly getting closer, moving west-northwest. Just take a look at the latest National Hurricane Center cone. Let's get the new one. And there's the updated cone now. Storm to make landfall close to Port St. Lucie, possibly a little bit to the north there. I'm sure that must have moved south slightly, that cone. Moving west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. Even now, you can still only barely see that hurricane force wind field. So there we go. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and you can see the storm behind me. Not great graphically with the camera quality. We'll get that fixed in the future, but certainly helps me take a look at what's going on with the center of that storm right now. You can quite clearly see that the northern side of that eye, even without the great quality, is building in better The southern side still lacking a little bit, but there's not much of a gap left to close now. So I really think it's made a lot of progress in the last hour or two. And I'm joined by my team this hour. We have a few people with us once again as we go back to our webcam at Cocoa Beach. We have David, Vapor, Dimitri, Tim, and Christian with us right now. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's kick us off straight away by inviting Zora onto our phone in Coral Springs, apparently. Hello, welcome.
Excuse me. Will Coral Springs will be affected by Nicole?
So, yeah, I mean, what are your conditions like at the moment?
25 mile per hour wind, and there's like a lot of rain.
Yep, that's going to continue for a while with another band about to move through shortly in about half an hour. So I think you'll get hit with another moderate spell of rain. I don't think it will get too heavy, but it will be an interesting few hours for you. And I don't think you'll get, well, you might get some tropical storm gusts maybe. I don't think you'll get those winds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. That was Zora there. Thanks for calling. And if you got any comments on our YouTube chat as well, you can get in touch there as well. Also, underneath our description, that's how you can access our Discord server. It's the first link you should see, I think. Gets you onto the phone-in. So, let's see what comments we have right now. Loser and a Moron says, great name, do you have any debates with the new intensity? They do, apparently. They feel like it should be 80 miles per hour. The problem with that is that there's no evidence at the moment. Recon haven't sampled the northeastern quadrant, which should have the strongest winds. And I think 75 is probably the best guess right now. We're not psychic, are we? We can't tell whether it's got 80 mile an hour winds without actually sampling it. I don't think it does, but who knows?
Interesting. Looking at that person's comment, they say it should be 981 millibars. Currently, it's 980, which I mean, it's not that far off. But
well, that was from Recon earlier. But Tim pointed out an observation last hour from a boy just off Grand Bahama, which would suggest 982 at the center. That it had gone up a little bit.
Fair enough.
So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting indeed. Also, earlier you mentioned Cape Canaveral. Don't they have aren't they planning a launch there fairly soon?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're planning a launch in a week. Or less than a week. I think it's supposed to be on, wait, isn't it supposed to be on Friday?
They were
it's
talking
either Friday
about
or
this,
Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if I mean the right person to ask here, I'm guessing is Daniel, because he's the lead into the recent relaunch of Space 13. If you're interested in space kind of stuff, I highly recommend you check that channel out.
Soft relaunch, that's why no one's heard about it. There was no promotional campaign or anything, but yeah, Tanya's doing some great work over there.
Yeah, because it got rescheduled because of Ian.
Yep.
Yeah,
and now it's getting rescheduled again, maybe. Because of another.
Yeah, and pretty sure that rocket can withstand at least 80 mile an hour, but it's sort of creeping up to that threshold.
Not for
so
Cape
to
Canaveral,
speak.
though. It's going to be south of there. They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah. But just in case the worst case scenario happens and that rocket ends up getting destroyed, it won't be good. Now, I'm not saying that is going to happen.
Won't happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. I'm not saying it will. Obviously, I hope it doesn't happen either, because that would be a massive monetary loss, especially for NASA. But yeah, down there, they at least better get their preparations done quickly.
Here's some more satellite imagery of Nicole, how it's progressed over the last 6 hours or so. Sometimes good to get a wide shot, and shows you just how large that eye has become. A massive black void there, 50 nautical mile wide eye. You don't often see that in these parts, but there it is. Really fascinating to watch that. Some comments then. What do we think Lake Okeechobee? Do we think... Oh, hold on a minute. I think the question is, do you think Lake Okeechobee could have an influence on Nicole? I don't think it's going to have much influence. Nicole's eye is much bigger than the entire lake, so I don't think there'll be much to talk about there. And a little off topic apparently, but Tropical Storm Altony Bronze says, does the Force 13 US channel cover snowstorms? Tim, I think you'll be on that soon, won't you?
I don't think Tim's back at the desk yet.
Tim's our US lead, and I'm sure he'll have a little chat about that later on. So, this is where we're at right now. The National Hurricane Center came out with their update 15 minutes ago. 75 mile per hour winds, pressure of 980 millibars. The way they were talking, they're not expecting any further strengthening, so that's some good news. Let's cut back to the live camera at Cocoa Beach. Waves rushing in here. We just had the high tide hour at this location, around about 9 o'clock. And the pier's fine so far by the looks of things, hasn't really changed very much. But there will be another high tide tomorrow morning, around about 8 to 9 a.m.
Oh, it's also a full moon.
Yes.
So that's good, yes.
Yep, already high
Explains a little bit
astronomical tides.
more as to why the tides are a little bit higher than you normally would.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Hola says, is this storm unusual during this time of year? Well, we were talking a lot more
No, not
about
really.
the climatological part of it earlier on in the stream, and no, Christian, it is. If we're talking
it?
about hurricanes making landfall on the Florida East Coast in November, this is the first time we've seen one in 87 years, since 1935, when a Category 2 made landfall pretty much over Miami. So,
Okay, I stand corrected.
yes, it is rare. Just watching this activity again here at Cocoa Beach. Just, I think it's lens debris, but I'm just looking down towards the bottom part there, just on the edge. Yeah, that's just rain. I thought some parts of the pier were starting to come loose, but no, it's fine. And some more comments there as well. What time are we doing a live stream tomorrow? We've no idea what we're doing for tomorrow's schedule yet, bearing in mind that my schedule is crammed with having to do work for our upcoming feature Hurricane Week as well. I think what might end up happening is that some of our US team might take over coverage after landfall, particularly if the main threat becomes severe weather induced. I'm sure Tim will have more to say about that. Another comment there, in the Western Pacific, I'm not sure what they're saying there. Do we go... You'll have to type that out again. I'm not sure what you're talking about. James says, how many years until we get another storm like Patricia? Oh dear.
Oh no.
Well, who knows? I mean, Patricia was an extremely powerful storm in the Eastern Pacific. I think an El Nino would help. That's what Patricia had in its favor. It's been a long time since we had an El Nino. So I really don't know how to answer that question. Patricia was a big anomaly. Big anomaly. So, but then when you go through the historical tables, you don't know how strong some of these older storms might have been. And in the same way, the way statistics go and probabilities, we could just as well get another one next year, even if the average return rate is 1,000 years. You just can't rule it out, can you? But I guess that's more philosophizing there. Back to the current pier cam, and you can still see a lot going on there and rumblings of that camera. Let's go back to the radar picture, and this storm continuing to gradually move west-northwestwards now towards its eventual landfall point, which will be somewhere near Port St. Lucie. A comment there, any possible lightning? That I'm not
That's what I
sure
was
about.
just about to think. That was just what I pointed out. Is there lightning in the storm?
I don't have those charts at the moment. Let me just go and check another source though, just to see if there might be. Oh, you can hear all that. There's a little bit in the northern bands, but nowhere near the center. But northern bands, you might get a little bit of lightning up here. Let me just annotate that out. Somewhere along here, you might get some little bits of lightning. I'm just trying to get to look at some traffic cameras again, just to see if there's any progress on flooding concerns, particularly further south around Fort Lauderdale and the Hollywood area. That's what we've been hearing about, flooding concerns, particularly from storm surge. But as I said before, there's really hardly any cameras along that area, so I'm not seeing much, but I'm sure those reports are true. We just can't get to the coastal areas on these cameras. Mateo first says, just recorded a 40-mile-per-hour gust near Tampa Bay a few minutes ago. That certainly is interesting. And the question was, another strong typhoon like 2013. I'm guessing, do we think we'll see one this month? Ah, dear, I don't really know what to say on that one. We're expecting a very strong finish to the Western Pacific, but the way things are looking right now, I'm not seeing much happening. But they can come out of nowhere. Did someone
I think there was a question earlier.
Yeah.
There's a question earlier regarding whether this storm makes the hurricane season for the Atlantic an average one. I think this is the 14th storm of the year in the Atlantic, if I'm counting correctly.
I think it is. It is, I guess you could put it in the average category. Quite a few strong storms, though.
Yeah, and right. But the thing is, my argument is, if it hasn't already been an average season, it would have been according to the ACE.
No.
The ACE says, I think, around, if I'm not mistaken, around 93.7 for the year, at least so far. It's not, I don't think we're going to get closer to like 126.1, which would be above average for which would be usually the amount for above average year, which we have in the last 5 years. I actually was the one who asked the question regarding whether or not, I think regarding like why wouldn't it be, I think that's something, I think it's just because you mentioned it earlier. I think it was mentioned that it was a kind of a quieter August than we expected, so yeah.
Oh, it was dead, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is, yeah. Did you say the 14th storm of the year in the Atlantic?
I think it was.
I was checking how many storms we have in the Atlantic, because I think the average is around 14 according to the NHC.
Yes, Nicole, by my count at least, is storm number 14 in the Atlantic.
Okay, so so that's what I was.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just looking at the listing from my bulletin template. It still counts.
Yeah. Just looking back at this camera again, which we've been showing on the screen for a while. This is Cocoa Beach right now, and you can see the waves looking pretty, and actually I can see some of the tops of those waves being pulled back by the wind there as well, so it's certainly windy at this location now, possibly getting up towards tropical storm force, if not already. This is Cocoa Beach, which is approximately, must be about 80 miles or so away from the center of the storm, maybe slightly more. So tropical storm force winds in this area, they won't get hurricane force winds. We're expecting that hurricane landfall area once again to be near Port St. Lucie, possibly just north, Fort Pierce perhaps, for that landfall. And we're expecting the landfall to occur at 3 a.m. local time is what our latest projections are showing us. So a long night ahead for many.
I'm seeing images on Twitter right now, especially one that was just retweeted by the main account. Apparently, the hurricane is still more than 100 miles offshore, and
Yes.
flooding has occurred in a certain restaurant.
That's a 4-hour-old tweet, so it's 50 miles from shore now.
Okay, yep, 4 hours old. So you were saying 50 miles?
About 50 miles right now.
Okay.
Yep, so a lot going on. Let's take a look and see if we can look back at some of the satellite imagery again, just to see how it's progressing. Here is the unenhanced infrared, and look at that, a little bit of banding which is extending around that that western side now. So to me, this is a sign of rehabilitation, I guess, and maybe an indication this storm might be strengthening. It is over the Gulf Stream now, that short little gap between Grand Bahama and the Florida coast, which has piping hot sea surface temperatures, carrying those warm waters out towards the northeast and eventually towards Europe and Greenland and Iceland. It would be so much colder in wintertime over there if it wasn't for the Gulf Stream. But you can see the storm might be taking advantage of that extra energy just before it makes landfall. Let's see if we can check another variant of this imagery. Here is the enhanced infrared with the color table. And that's showing there once again that burst, quite impressive, and looks to me as though the eye is tightened quite a bit just in those last half hour or so period there. So I'm a little bit concerned that this storm might be intensifying a little bit before landfall. David, any thoughts?
I've been watching the satellite imagery, and it's definitely tightening up. And I'm going to support your comment that it's got the windows there for it to deepen, and the main factor coming from your comment was the Gulf Stream, but
possibly
the threat is far from being over, and the storm surge and tropical storm force winds even up into South Carolina region. But I was just thinking, Nathan, factoring in the latest information from the NHC that it started to turn. So I was wondering whether it would have slowed down, waiting for that new steering mechanism to kick in.
No, it's good. It's a fairly constant pace that we're watching here. It might slow down a little bit as it reaches the Florida Panhandle region and weakens to a depression. You can see the forecast cone again from the NHC here, weakening to a depression over Georgia, and then continuing northeastwards and dying off somewhere over Virginia. So the storm, extremely large wind field, that will drop. The size of the wind field will drop fairly quickly as the storm weakens after it makes landfall. To the point where by morning hours of Friday, that wind field will be completely diminished and depleted. It's quite amazing to think that such a large wind field will be gone by Friday morning, and then its energy will transfer to that frontal system and an extratropical cyclone that rushes up the east coast of the United States, and those winds get back up again off the coast.
Where do you think it will cross the coast as it tracks north?
At which point?
Back out into the Atlantic.
Oh, well, probably through Canada, actually. Probably through Atlantic Canada, Gulf of St. Lawrence, maybe, and through Newfoundland and out over the Atlantic Ocean. So, certainly a potential for issues up there as well, of course. We've got just over half an hour here to run, so feel free to send in your comments and questions live on the air, and you can join our call if you've got any comments for us. Let's see if we can talk to Alex right now. You're on the air.
Yeah, hello. So, do I actually have a few things that I want to say? Maybe like 3 or 4. First thing. You guys really think Nicole is going to maintain hurricane strength before it hits Florida? I think it's probably going to go down to either tropical or subtropical storm before making landfall.
It can't really turn subtropical from here. But that's
also, is it just... Yeah, what is it? Go ahead.
I think it has enough tropical characteristics at this time that it will remain a tropical storm if it does downgrade. But I think it's strong enough as it is right now that I think it's going to hold as a hurricane at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, there's more. Second thing. Is it just me, or do all of you guys agree that Hurricane Igor of 2010 was a low-end Category 5?
Oh, I can't remember what I put down now. I think we did upgrade that. It is one of the classic borderline cases of a Category 5 storm, much like Floyd,
Yeah,
which was mentioned by a commenter not long ago.
I watched your animation on 2010, and it showed Igor with the Category 5 icon back then.
Yeah.
Third thing.
First, is that like a question to all of us or just to Nathan?
All of you guys.
I have no memories. I don't remember anything about that storm, so I can't say anything about it.
Yeah. Once again, I was way too young for that one, but so I don't have any remembrance of it. Not to mention, I don't even live in the US, so I hardly get affected by tropical systems as is.
Hold on a minute. Igor hit the UK.
No idea what it. In what year? 2010?
As an extratropical storm, yeah. So you should
As
remember that
extratropical.
one.
Well, I don't.
Well,
unless it was responsible for a massive snowstorm, which I doubt it was.
No, it was a windstorm. All right, let's move
Yeah,
on.
no,
Thanks for the
no,
call,
I
Alex.
remember that.
Vapor, any news there right now? I know I keep coming back to you. What's the latest? Looks like you might be in a little, just about, actually. Just tell us.
I'm in a band right now. I think I might go outside real quick and check it out real quick.
Okay.
So I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Yeah, I'll stay safe. Don't worry.
There's a lot of little bits headed your way there. Lots of little orange and red areas, showery stuff heading through.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna head out for a second. I'll be back.
Yep. Some more large-scale showers further north there that's about to move into Palm Bay and towards Cocoa Beach and towards Cape Canaveral. Some pretty sharp stuff in there as well, and potentially on the lookout for severe indicators in there. Maybe some cellular activity and maybe tornadic. A slight risk, in effect, for north of the landfall zone along the east coast of Florida through the morning hours and beyond. So we'll see if that develops and how that might develop. Ryan, you're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I just had a really quick question. Do you expect any tornadoes with the storm around Central Florida?
I don't think so. Not inland. I think they'll be quite coastal.
Well, that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the call. Tim, you're back with us right now, and you wanted to come in with something, I think.
Yeah, we have a very interesting finding on Recon.
Okay, this is what we wanted to hear.
Hello.
This was on their northeast to southwest pass, and this is offshore north of Grand Bahama Island. So I'm going to point that out first and foremost. Flight level was 70 knots. However, we had two data points of 75 and 78 knot SFMR unflagged. So that is a very interesting development. Yeah, I don't know if that's a gust or if that's not. It's a little anomalous because it doesn't match any of the rest of the data set. But
well, no, how can surface be stronger than flight level?
And what are those values in miles an hour?
85,
no, knots.
It was about 85 miles an hour.
It's had a sign of deepening. And I'm looking at those northern rain bands to the northwest.
Yeah, extensive rain bands up there.
Yep, the Palm.
And this would have been off the northeastern quadrant, and it would have been coming off that one convective band before hitting the center. So I'm not sure how much stock I want to put into those measurements, but there have been instances where we have seen the SFMRs be higher than the flight level. It just does not happen that often, though, when it does occur.
So, Tim, those two readings indicate strengthening winds.
At least at the surface on the northeastern side, yes.
And I'm thinking of the previous one that you scored the bullseye with the, what was the drop zone? You picked up a flag of, what was it, 50 plus knots or?
That was also during Hurricane Ian, and that was leading into an advisory where we had a little bit more data to work with. This is data that's coming in after the advisory is already released, so I'm not sure how much the NAC is going to take stock in those measurements.
And it's going from the northeast to what, the south?
Yeah, northeast, southwest, and like the last pass, we're seeing extrapolated pressures drop down into the high 970s. But I'm really interested to see what this drop sond is getting.
Yeah, that's going to be really key here.
Yeah, it is.
Do you have any information on power outages right now?
Yeah, let me just update it, and we're at 12,000 outages right now, primarily along the east coast of Florida, 2,600 in Brevard County, 840 in Indian River County, 886 in St. Lucie. Martin County's got 190, Palm Beach 1,600, Broward's at 290, Miami-Dade at 1,570. 300 in Collier County, 1297 in Lee County. So we are seeing a few outages on the southern side of Florida where we are seeing those tropical storm force winds coming into play. But it does not look like it's like heavily concentrated in one area right now. So we are getting some sporadic outages all the way up to all the way up and down the East Coast, all the way from Nassau County, all the way down to Miami-Dade. Getting some pockets of 30, 40. Duval County's at 660, St. John's 250, Flagler 20, Volusia 90. So all up and down the east coast of Florida, we're seeing some power outages. Nothing too major as of yet, though.
Fall in a few hours, and those people without electricity, and hopefully they've got their emergency radio.
It's your weather radios if you have. This is the time that you gotta get your weather radio. Like, it's too late for this storm, but in the future, time to get your weather radio to prepare for storms like this, right?
If I'm being honest, most of the stores are already closed at this hour. Most of your hardware stores probably close 8:30, 9 o'clock on a
I wasn't
weekday,
talking about
so
specifically like regarding like the actual like getting prepared for this storm. I'm talking about in general for future storms.
Yeah. I was going to talk to Tim about something there as well, but there was comments earlier on about the about whether we do winter stuff, and there's a lot of that coming up as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the US channel operations and what you're doing for this storm and for the upcoming winter?
Yeah, Nathan. Right now, our US channel has an automated stream. It is a quad panel display.
I should mention that when we finish up here at the end of the hour, you'll be automatically redirected there if you still want to stick around, viewers. So
Yep, we do have a quad panel automated stream showing Hurricane Nicole on the GR2 radar. Right now, that is using the Melbourne radar for its data information. We have the rapid scan off of the College of DuPage website for radar. We have the watches and warnings, and we have that same live camera that you have there on Cocoa Beach. And we are trying to get the team back up and running to do a lot more content for the US channel. Severe weather, obviously, we covered last week, and we are trying to definitely get more winter weather stuff into our production. So
will you be doing stuff for the of course when Nicole moves inland tomorrow, we've got to figure out how streaming is going to work there with severe weather possible.
Yeah, normally what we used to do is we used to do an after the storm stream just to showcase some of the damage and some of the impacts. But we are trying to get our team back together and get it up and running. So anybody that is listening to this stream, if you have a passion for U.S. weather, whether it be severe weather, tropics, or winter weather, you can always hop on our Discord and reach out to Nathan or myself, and we will set you up with an interview and see where you fit into the grand scheme of the U.S. channel operations, and you can help a great channel grow, and you yourself individually grow, as we'll be helping you get the skills needed to not only help us grow, but you can take those skills into a collegiate and professional setting later on down the road.
Well, the northern eye wall of Nicole right now looking more and more impressive with those colors getting darker and darker, and the eye sort of closing in a little bit more. Looks a little bit elongated at this point though, if it certainly is. And this does have a little bit of a bias to it, this camera angle. Let's just go to the normal camera angle. Well, that removes the elongation a little bit. It's still a little bit elongated. Let's just try and draw a circle there and figure out what we're dealing with. Yeah, a bit of an elongation, but that's the general shape of the eye. Center of the storm now probably around about there. And we take the track of it, continuing up this way, probably northwestwards eventually, and through the rest of the Florida Peninsula. So that's the live shot of the storm right now on radar. Let's go back to the view at Cocoa Beach. So looking very heavy weather there. Waves all over the place. Tumultuous waters there. And every so often you can see winds whipping up the tops of the waves, the white caps, into the air. Probably tropical storm conditions. We had them on earlier, but let's see if we can talk to them again. Goodman? Hello?
Hi. Sorry.
Hi, you're live.
Oh, I just have a question about when it comes it's about Ian and how whenever you guys were charting Ian's path, like there was a bunch of similarities with Hurricane Charlie back in 2004. Does
Right.
that happen with hurricanes or not really?
What was that at the end?
With like comparing Ian's path and the Hurricane Charlie's path, do hurricanes actually have similar paths in some scenarios, like what happened
Oh,
with
yeah.
Ian and yeah, really?
Of course, similar paths, but sometimes much different properties and different scenarios. This storm can't really be compared to that many other storms. I mean, I've seen some people in the comments comparing it to Francis and things like that, but it's not a peak season category 2, is it? It's a much different storm.
Yeah, I just found that very interesting, especially like whenever Ian's path was starting to become more and more like Charlie's. I was finding those comparisons because I was born before Charlie, and seeing Ian's path similar to Charlie was a little surreal for me.
But it happens more often than you think with those more. I would say that's, well, I don't know. But there's plenty of differences between those two storms tracks. Charlie was much further east when it moved through Cuba, so from a Cuban's perspective, the tracks were completely different. But from the Florida perspective, yeah, they were much more similar.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to ask. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me back.
No problem at all.
And to piggyback off of that track notion, Nathan, I mean, you can make the argument this is similar to Francis, Andrew, or Katrina with its track. However, those storms all occurred in different times of the year. So trying to compare Nicole to one of those other storms is not going to really be comparable due to the time of the year and where their origins came from. As you said, it's unusual for us to see a storm on this side of Florida this time of the year, even though climatologically we still do watch the Gulf Stream from the Carolinas down to Florida into the Gulf and Western Caribbean for storm formation. So seeing something on the east side of Florida this time of the year is not something that we're used to normally seeing.
Usual November storms are racing up northeastwards by this point, some of them already going at breakneck speed by the time they move through Florida. They almost always come from the Caribbean, shoot through the Yucatan Channel, and then through Florida, moving northeastwards. So it's very rare that you get setups like these, obviously, as this is going to be the first East Coast Florida hurricane landfall in November. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but the first one of those since 1935, when the only other hurricane landfall we know of in the database hit the Miami area as a Category 2. Two other cyclones did strike the east coast of Florida in November in history, though. There was a weaker tropical storm in 1946 that first formed off the east coast of Cuba and then moved up through the Florida Peninsula as a tropical storm. And what was left of Gordon in 1994 was a tropical depression by the time it washed ashore the east coast of Florida. I think that was really large at that point as well, and interesting comparison with that one too, although the tracks are completely different. We got another 15 minutes here. I don't think we're going to get much more news coming in, so we're happy to take questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text and we'll be able to respond. Is there more of a northward jog right now? What are we seeing, guys?
I would say if there is a northward component, it is ever so slight.
I think it's pretty stable.
I think NAC had it at a bearing of 280 on their last update.
And I think now they're at 285. Do you think the power outages will go up when Nicole makes landfall? Yeah, especially north of the storm. Will we see more late season storms since the waters are favourable? Possibly December. Well, if you're talking about East Florida, I did chase up December statistics. Oh dear, I can't speak. I did chase up December statistics, and along the east coast of Florida there is a whopping total of 0 tropical cyclones of any strength that made landfall on the east coast of Florida. December storms in themselves are very rare in the Atlantic. Wouldn't put it past the Atlantic this year, though, to do something silly like that. And is a landfall possible in Palm Bay? I think you're going to be too far north for the landfall, but you will get the northern side of that eye wall, which could get pretty gnarly at times. Some more questions there. Will there be a Spanish version update of Hurricane Nicole, similar to what we did for Ian? I don't think any of our Spanish members are available. It certainly hasn't been scheduled, so I don't think we will. And looks like convection is rapidly organizing on the south side. Let's chase back to the satellite imagery here and see what we can see.
We do have some damage reports coming in, Nathan. Yeah, Storm
graphics.
Chaser Dr. Reed Timmer and Storm Chaser Vince Welty are down in Melbourne Beach for Hurricane Nicole, and they had some instruments down on the pier there, and that pier has been swept away.
Wow, that can't be far. That can't be far from the webcam that we were looking at Coco Beach. Interesting. More comments here. Well, first of all, let's look at this convection. Interesting how that's shaping up there. Although it looks like that convection on the west side is peaking and it might fall away again. So more comments. Any future new storms in the Atlantic Ocean? Can't rule it out in a season like this. I don't think they'd affect land if they did form, though. Do we know the chances of Pennsylvania to ever get a hurricane hit? Whatever? Quite difficult, considering Pennsylvania is landlocked. Chances would be very low. I suppose it's not impossible at all. I think it's probably been done a few times. I'm not sure what to tell you about that. What will be the winds in Fort Myers? Let's have a look. Your area probably only... Ooh.
I think Fort Myers is in the tropical storm wind field already at this time off the last NHC cone.
You sure?
I believe so.
Yeah, they're on the edge of it. So possibly a short period of tropical storm force winds for a while, I'd say. What's the worst you think Nicole could get in terms of miles per hour? I think there could be a chance for 85. But I would forecast it to stay the same at 75, personally. Looks like the eye is trying to contract. Comment there. Why do piers mostly get destroyed or washed away in the majority of hurricanes? Well, they're pretty vulnerable, aren't they? They're already halfway in the water.
Yeah, it's a combination of they're already out in the water, and usually
force
the
of the
piers,
ocean is very, very powerful. When you think
and
that
usually the piers usually catch the brunt of it. We saw that with the Fort Myers pier during Ian, where that got hammered pretty hard.
when you think that adult human beings can get swept away by half a foot sometimes of rushing water, and then you've got these piers on stilts that have to face the might of several feet, possibly tens of feet at the deep end, of ocean that's being forced inland by 75-mile-an-hour winds, or stronger in the case of Ian, you're going to see these piers get damaged.
Yeah, and most of these piers, Nathan, most of them are just little 1x4 deck boards that stretch all the way across the pier. So they're going to hold their weight, but they're not going to hold their weight against the might of a tropical cyclone that's throwing 10, 12-foot waves with 100-mile-an-hour plus winds backing them. It's just not going to do it.
Some more comments there. Diego wants to know about winds in Boca Raton right now. Looks to me as though they're probably getting tropical storm force winds. Interesting look on the radar right now. Let's cut back to the radar. The western side of the eye looking less curved, and there's more of a sharp edge to the edge of the eye there, if you know what I mean. Perhaps some fragmentation going on, maybe. But I don't know. Changing all the time, that radar imagery. We sometimes think that one thing is happening, and then it all of a sudden becomes something else that we weren't expecting. You can see the eye tightening up there on that radar imagery, though. Let's just look back at that first image and just mark what it looks, what it apparently looks like to us. The eye shape round about there, and the last image, which is showing that the eye a little bit on the edge there, but it's contracted a little bit on the inside there. So perhaps some contraction going on, which might mean strengthening, but the shape of it looks to be going the other way. So, well, going to be interesting to watch these few hours up until landfall. Let's go back to the pier right now at Cocoa Beach. Looking pretty heavy there right now. They're getting a few more yellow areas of bands of rain, and a few of those red areas on reflectivity not far away, so they're going to get a bit of a hammering fairly soon. A few more comments there. What is Nicole's cloud top temperature? That is something we've actually not really looked at very much during the course of this stream. I'm going to have a little look.
Yeah, I don't think they're very cold overall, though. Not from what we normally see from a hurricane that we normally see intensifying.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's not significant. I'm just looking now, just catching up here. So yeah, only in the minus 50s. One or two very, very tall tops might get to minus 60 in that northern band. But near the center of the storm, really nothing. Minus 50s. Who's that? Chris.
Chris, hello. Yeah, sorry I'm late. I had an issue come up.
No problem.
This would be one of our newer U.S. team members on the air. Go ahead.
I did reach out to my grandmother since she is in the path of the storm. She does have enough stuff. Her hurricane shutters are up. Is the building she lives on, she has hurricane shutters that can withstand up to Category 5 hurricane status.
So definitely sounds like some people definitely down in Florida have prepared very well ahead of this.
Oh yeah, no, she's had those on her house for a few years, and it's like ever since she got them on, whenever she gets a storm on her side, puts them up. Doesn't matter if it's just a regular tropical storm or a hurricane. She puts them up. If you live in Florida and you live on the coast, I'd recommend them.
We also... Where were we just for a moment? Vapor, just give us a final update because we're almost finishing up here. Just your conditions right now and any changes that you've seen throughout this evening.
Yes, sir. So, recently, wind has started been picking up a little bit more. Rain also picking up a lot more. I think we've gotten about an inch and a half since we started streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a fair
and
amount.
yeah, the reason why I disconnected just a couple minutes ago is because I had a power outage for a quick. So, I came back inside because I saw lightning, and 5 minutes later, and the power's out. So.
Gosh. So yeah, temporary power outages there.
Yep. Speaking of that, Nathan, power outages are at 12,500. And then the last remark from me, Recon did make a drop. Got 982 with a 17 knot wind, suggesting 980.3 millibars for Hurricane Nicole at this time.
Sticking around the same intensity then. Ethan, I noticed that you're back here as well. Do you want to just give us your lowdown on what your thoughts are on Nicole as we finish up here?
I'll make it brief. Hurricane Nicole is a large hurricane, and impacts are going to extend far away from the center. And just because that you're not under a hurricane warning does not mean that you can get impacts. And it's very important that you stay tuned to your National Weather Service office and emergency management officials for the latest information.
If I can tack onto that on what Ethan was adding. Yeah, guys, like, seriousness here. Like, even if you're not in the cone for this storm, we saw with Ian, there were a lot of people that weren't in the cone, and they still got a lot of damage from Ian. Just because you're not in the cone doesn't mean you're immune to the damage of storm. So if you're in an area that's not in the cone, you're within a decent mile of where the storm's going to hit, and you haven't made preparations now, then you might as well make plans on what you're going to do, because you had plenty of time to prepare. That's my piece on it.
Yeah, I think it's a little too late to prepare at the moment here. I think the only advice I'm going to give before the hour is up is, one, hunker down, make sure you're safe. And there's a comment they were mentioning, like, opening the windows. Close the windows, please. Have a little bit of common sense. Close those windows. Let's make it so that way you don't end up having flooding rains into the home. That's like, have a little common sense there. Stay tuned to local media, the No Weather Radio if you have it. All the National Weather Service stuff like that. Just make sure you're hunkering down and stuff, and just ride this storm out. It's too late to prepare now.
Thank you. You can find us on all our social media outlets on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13 all in text. You can find us on our Discord server where we have our community active, discord.gg/Force13. And we will now throw you over to the US automated stream on Force 13 US. Stay right there and it will redirect you here on YouTube automatically. How cool is that? But Nicole about to make landfall in Florida later tonight. We're expecting it around 3 a.m. local time, and we'll be here to pick it up again tomorrow.